now, please. Thank you. Yep. Right. Thank you, Councillor Keithy. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee of Stratford District Council. 29th of November. Where has the time gone? Obviously, there's no planned fire alarms today, so we've had a briefing last time from Julie, so we all know where to go if there's a problem. I'm personally following Julie, so if you follow me, I'm following Julie. We should be go the right way. So, first item on the agenda, any apologies, please, Howard?
Good morning, Chair. No apologies received today.
A full house and loads of guests as well. Yeah, it was a country city fun. I'm not used to such big crowds, so please bear with me. And also, please bear with me today. I've got a stupid tickle that occasionally causes me to have a coughing fit. So if I do have to run out, Councillor Passagum has kindly agreed to take over whilst I go and choke and, in the kitchen somewhere. So, apologies. Councillor Fradley, please.
My wife's asked me to pass on the news that she's out somewhere at the moment. I'm not quite sure where. But she expects to be in at some point.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we both have to leave about midday to go on another jaunt.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you, Councillor Fradley. Right. Item 2, disclosure of interest. I'll ask the members who've got any, and then I'll need to raise an issue as well on one item on the agenda. Any disclosures of interest? No. Item number 5 is the concessionary parking permit update. And obviously that is for, I'm trying to be as delicate as possible here, for people over 65. Obviously, there's so many people far too young here that it probably doesn't apply to anybody. He says, fingers crossed. I've been asked by the monitoring officer and taken advice on Howard as well to ask if members have applied for a permit. And if they have, they would have to declare an interest. Yeah, I don't think anybody has applied. So therefore, I think it would be fair and reasonable for members to stay and discuss this matter, as long as, again, with the usual caveat that they come with the open and honest mind as normal meetings. So that is what I'm going to propose. But Councillor Rolfe, you've indicated you want to come in, please.
I thought it was over pensionable age rather than over 65.
Is it? Which
Yes, it is state pension age. You're right, Councillor Rolfe. But I think if nobody's applied for a permit and we're not making any decisions today, we're just discussing the performance of the scheme, it would be appropriate for everybody to contribute to the discussion. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for that. So we'll take that we're all okay, and we can debate that in the normal way. Right. Thank you for that. Chair's brief. I've got nothing in the Chair's brief today. So we'll move swiftly on to Stratford-upon-Avon Christmas markets, and Councillor Greycott and Officer Julie Lewis, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously we're here today to discuss the new format of the Christmas market. So the Victorian four-day Victorian market is no longer to be. We are now doing a different format, which is 2 weekends and a Christmas theme. So the reason why we changed was after some concerns that was raised last year. The Victorian market started, I think it's in 2017, and it's been a real success. We have had bigger and more people attending. We have had a great response from the public. We have been in Guardian and Telegraph lists of best Christmas markets in the country. We have really been able to showcase this town, Stratford town, very well. in fact, in some ways, we've been a bit of a victim of our own success because we've had so many people coming last year that there were some real concerns with the impact on the community here, people working in the town, people having to live in the town, and for also the visitors that were being attracted over that 4-day period. There was a meeting afterwards and certain safety issues were raised. Now, these were mainly complaints from the public, and these are people that are from the local area, complaining that the fact that 4 days extending over the working week was impacting children being bused to schools, people attending hospital appointments and doctor's appointments, people trying to come in for their employment. And we found this was is discussed and found to be clearly unacceptable. A more concerning side of it was the fact that, as in some other Christmas markets within the country, there was a very large attendance, and especially on the Saturday. On the Saturday, coming outside the Encore, there was pinch points there, and we did have quite significant, well, the health and safety and the regulatory people had quite serious concerns about the potential for incidents that such as crush injuries and that sort of thing. So we had to have a review of what we did to address these issues. So we worked, the town and the district councils worked with our markets provider, which is LSD, to change the format to address these issues. So firstly, we moved from 4 days to 2 weekends of 2 days for duration. And the idea of this was that we were finding that LSD was setting up on Wednesday afternoon, and we were having days and days of disruption. So this is one of the changes that was made, and we had a lot of discussion with our contractors because this was a major difference. We had very hard work from our officers, and I want to thank them for this. We managed to negotiate a mutually acceptable variation, and we also hope that this will, going forward, provide an event which actually is more enjoyable because it extends the Christmas market season, so to speak. The other issues was the crowding. So one of the problems with an event like this is we cannot stop people coming into the town. It's not a ticketed event, so we have to can't control and stop people from coming in. So we have to make sure that when people are here, they have the room and the facilities to be able to not be put in any risk. So what we negotiated with the market contractors LSD was the fact that we would reduce the amount of market stalls for a start. One of the issues with the market contract that we had was that it was fairly unclear in certain areas, and one was the parameters of the Victorian market. And our contractor was very good. They wanted it to be a success. So as far as they were concerned, more the merrier. So we were having, on every year, more and more and more market stalls, more, we had things like sound stages, etc., which was great for attracting more people in and making it more spectacular. But the problem was it was encroaching on the room available to the public. So we've reduced this, negotiated, and we have got this reduced to 200 stalls now. So we should be able to address those issues. The other side of it is obviously the parking issues, the road management issues, and we are using a much smaller footprint this year. So we are using Bridge Street. The only roads that will be fully closed this year will be Bridge Street and Waterside, which means that for the duration of the market, people that aren't going to the market can actually move around the town and basically get on with their lives. Things have been negotiated. So we've got Wood Street will be open, Union Street will be open, Sheep Street will be open. We'll have hostile vehicle mitigation plans around. I know you like your hostile vehicle mitigations there, Chair. Okay. Water Street and Henley Street will be pedestrianised. Okay, so I think that covers anything, all the details of the new format for the Christmas market, apart from it's not going to be a Victorian theme these days, because we didn't think it was very festive to have people sort of standing around looking pretty miserable in Victorian outfits. So it's going to have more of a Christmas theme, and we're going to have things like roving Christmas entertainment rather than having a stage at one end. So I think that's most of the major points of this, these changes. I'd like to sort of commend the changes that have been made by the officers. So thank you. I don't know if you would like to come in for anything that I've missed at all.
Councillor Roth, you got something you want to declare?
Yes,
and then
I
Councillor Alcott.
apologise. I have to declare an interest as I sit on the Market Committee as a Town Councillor. Thank you.
Councillor Alcott, do you want to come in first then, please?
Thank you. It all sounds very exciting. As somebody who loves Christmas, I am quite excited about it. A couple of things I'd just like to check with you. With Union Street not being open for parking and Bridge Street being pedestrianised, can you just confirm on, are there going to be any additional spaces for disabled parking provided to make up for the ones we're losing?
Thank you, Councillor Alcock. We do have, as part of the Safety Advisory Group and the management plans that have been put in place in preparation for this, we do have the Stratford Christmas Market Accessibility Statement 2024, which shows all the arrangements for disabled parking for the event. I'm sure if you need any extra details, the officers can comment for you.
Thank you. Can I continue my second question? Thank you, Chair. Obviously, what we could do with is not so many cars on the road trying to all get into the town at the same time. I haven't seen it, maybe I've missed it, but has there been anything so that the park and ride is going to be provided for free as it has been done in other years? And if it is, are they actually advertising it? Because I've not seen this anywhere at all. And it would be a benefit to people if we could work that.
Of course. We want to reduce the amount of congestion on the roads, and this is one of the another concern for the Christmas market is the fact that with everybody converging into our town centre to use our car parks, it causes disruption. Unfortunately, Stratford Town doesn't really have the infrastructure for the roads to be able to support the additional traffic for these events, and during summer as well. And obviously this is an issue we have been raising with the county. Where it comes to the park and ride, I'm aware that the park and ride was made free during the Mop Fair due to the fact that there was the roadworks on the Birmingham Road that were undertaken. I don't know personally if it is going. I don't remember it being the park and ride being free last year for the Victoria Market. I don't know if this is confirmed. No, I've got a shake of the head from the officer. But obviously that is something that maybe the county should consider to help alleviate the congestion across town. Thank you.
I think currently there is free parking on the park and ride. I think it runs out tomorrow. But I think it was, it was a nice tune. I think it was the last meeting where we were talking about highways and things like that and the implications. And I think it is something we could discuss on a regular basis, the implications of decisions, etc., and joined up thinking. So I think this is something, the implications of things, and I think it is quite important to that, and it is sensible. It doesn't make sense. And if it helps the overcrowding, which I believe was quite severe last year, and also congestion on the A46 was there in different roads. If anything can be done to alleviate that, so that would be helpful. And that was probably, I'll lead on to my question, then I'll bring other members back in, is what discussions have there been with highways to help with the congestion on the A46 or different main roads into town? Because we don't want queuing roads on queuing roads, that's quite good, queuing traffic on the roads when there's cars doing 40, 50, 60 miles an hour and then suddenly have to brake. So I just wonder what the implications were and what discussions have been done to try and alleviate that. And thank you for the question.
So, sorry, can I come in there? So as part of the whole plans, we have a traffic management plan, we have an event safety plan. Numerous conversations have been held with county. I'm waiting for, so we have got as far as they've confirmed that the park and ride will definitely be open. They do that as they have some special event days that they can request from Stagecoach, and Stagecoach have confirmed that they will be on and they will put extra buses on because they're aware of the demand. I'm waiting for confirmation, and I have a meeting with county again on Tuesday about whether or not they will actually charge for the actual car park space. Stagecoach will charge for the bus ride, there's no doubt about that, but we are asking county that they don't charge for the actual car parking bit. And I will hopefully have confirmation, if not later today, but certainly when I speak to county again on Tuesday. To go on to your other question, yes, county are fully aware of the event. We've also requested that all the, we have the road signs that say car park full, number of spaces, etc., that don't work accurately and add to the confusion. We've asked for those to be fully turned off, and we're still chasing that one. And again, I'm hoping for confirmation of that either today or by Tuesday, that they will be completely turned off because they don't help the situation. In terms of Stratford is what it is with the road structure that we have. The one thing I will categorically say for the 2 weekends of the markets is there will be traffic congestion, there will be, people queuing to park. We can only work with the road structure that we've got. We've done everything absolutely possible to try and minimise the impact that has. But we can't build more roads. We haven't got more ways in. We've done everything possible to try and alleviate, what can actually happen, and that has been publicised. And to be honest, we're absolutely really now in the hands of the weather and what the weather does as to whether everybody comes on one day or whether they all come the second weekends. I think the fact that the market doesn't actually open till 12 o'clock on both Saturdays might help to alleviate some of the traffic problems, because in the past it's opened much earlier, so it's been a bit full on all day, so that might help. What I will say is we have done everything we can to try and alleviate problems as much as we absolutely can. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And would you be able to update us after Tuesday's meeting to see how things have gone, so we can make our residents aware, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, we're updated. There is a lot of information already on our website about, the car parking, the road closure. All of the information we've revealed to you is on the website. Please, please, please just encourage people to keep putting that out. There is information going out from LSD and the markets, and they've got their own social media. As quick as we have confirmation about the actual, whether the park and ride itself, the parking bit is free, we will of course tell you. But it's a difficult message because we might be saying, well, the park and ride parking's free, but you still have to pay for the bus journey. But I am doing absolutely everything possible with county to try and just, ease that one last problem.
I'd asked Mr. Perk to see if we could speak to the media team to see whether they could get something on the radio and approach as many media outlets as possible to get it out. So
yeah, that is part of the whole. I mean, but please, can I just at this point say a really big thanks to all the officers that have been involved in this, because there has been a tremendous amount of work gone into changing the whole format and what's happening, and to make it as secure as possible. And I will give credit particularly to Andy, who sat on my left here, who, the amount of work that he's put into this, backed up by Henry and Craig, sat behind us, the whole licensing team, the whole food team. Everybody's on standby. A lot of work has gone into this. We can only do what we can do, and I really believe we've done everything absolutely possible. We do have press releases going out. We work with LSD and the Market Forum and the promotions team, so we will get as much promotion out next week. I say that with kind of Actually, do you know what? One of our biggest issues is how many people come to the market. So I'm kind of, as I say that, how much do we want to promote this? Because, but we will promote what can be done and where they can park and how they can pay and whatever. So that is all part of the ongoing operational, behind-the-scenes work that's going on every minute now.
I think it goes with the name being helpful, Andy, doesn't it? Councillor Littlewood, you've got the next question, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good. Well, we hear what you said, and I mean, we've been talking about this for over a year now after the last disaster, and the basis of the mitigation is spreading it over 2 weekends, has been so. But we live in uncertain times, and there are other issues as well that can arise. Even with the reduced number of stalls, we still might expect, hopefully, a good attendance. What is in place in terms of an emergency plan, evacuation plan, etc.?
Yeah, sorry, can I just say you used the word disaster then of the market last year? I don't think that's a fair description of the market last year. It was hugely successful, and there weren't any, big disasters. What we have looked at is, well, just a minute, we're kind of perhaps, what more can we do? So if I can just clarify that, my opinion, of course. In terms of emergency planning, yes, there is a full emergency plan in place. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to go into all the detail of what we might do should there be various, terrorist incidents, anything else on the day. What I will say is we are walking around with the police at 9 o'clock on the Saturday morning to check that everything, is in place that should be in place, and that we have mitigated as much as possible. There is a lot of detail in the background, also involving, CCTV, police, myself as the head of emergency planning, and the team. And of course, we have a very good security detail working all four days that have worked with us for a number of years now. So plans are in place for us to mitigate, what we can mitigate.
If I could just clarify on that, and then maybe I could come back with a supplementary, just an additional information. Sorry, what I'm really thinking about, I mean, yes, quite right, you're not going to tell anybody what the emergency plan is. I understand that perfectly and it's sensible. But what I was really thinking about is if we get an influx of people that we're more than we expect, how are we going to handle that? As you said, we can't stop people coming into the town. So that's really what I was thinking about. And in connected with that, as I understand it, part of the problem last time was because Lincoln at the last minute cancelled its plans. Have we done a survey of other events in the country?
Have we done a survey of other events? No, because they're very different events. What we have done is risk assessed our situation with the emergency plan, with the SAG, the Safety Advisory Group, as to what action can be taken. We do have preparations in place should we feel that there is an issue of overcrowding or problems at any one time. And again, we're in an open forum. They're not things I want to openly discuss, but we do have plans and measures in place as far as we can, should that situation arise.
Councillor Grocott, you wanted to add something on, please?
Yes, of course. Obviously the officers have worked very hard to do as much mitigation of risk as possible. But obviously the very nature of risk is that you can only reduce it. The ultimate mitigation, which we faced as politicians, was, are we just going to completely stop this whole thing? That's the most safest thing to do. But we also have a duty to the businesses and to promoting the town, to making sure that we actually have moved forward, events like this that promotes the district and that allows to economic growth on the back of this sort of thing. So these decisions are always difficult from a political point of view, because like I say, Julie has not got a crystal ball. But we, as I say, I've got good confidence that the officers have done everything. The health and safety team have done everything they can, and there are and I do know that they can't go into details, but there are a lot of plans in place. But thank you for your concern.
Is that going to be one of the stores there, Lorraine, the Crystal Ball stall? For right, I've got Councillor Wally Hoggins, then Councillor Fradgley next.
Hello, I'm fully aware of how much work's gone into getting to this point, and we can't be Grinches, and I accept that this market is going ahead and acknowledge all of that work. Can you tell me, though, the last time the market was held on weekdays when there were offices and this council was open, so we were able to handle the influx of inquiries, and we could see that there was a problem there. How are officers going to be working over that weekend in order to support what's going on? I'm also conscious that because of the reputational damage, if something does go wrong, is a comms strategy ready to go with that, with suitably media-trained officers on standby in order to give interviews? I also want to know, have we received robust assurances from the police that there will be adequate numbers of police officers on duty in Stratford-on-Avon on those days? And how often have they come to planning meetings with regard to this event, given the influx of the numbers? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that and the recognition of the work that's gone in. In terms of officers, for us it's business as usual, so we will be operating, on the Saturday and Sundays just as we normally would on the Thursday and Friday, just as, our emergencies, for instance, very rarely actually happen Monday to Friday weekdays. So we have a full team of officers that will be around all weekend. Should there be an incident, the emergency plan would kick in just as it would kick in for, any other emergency. I will be around for much of those 4 days, but we are all contactable, in terms of phone, WhatsApp, presence on the ground between ourselves and the Town Council. We also have comms on duty, and both Helena and Bev have done the appropriate comms media courses. But obviously it depends on the event, on the situation, because should it be, an emergency because of, heaven forbid, a terrorist incident or whatever, then the full emergency plan would kick in and the comms would be led by, the police and media teams anyway. So, normal emergency procedures would apply for those 4 days. And to be fair, when, in the past, even though it's been weekdays, we know that most of our concerns actually happen at the weekend and not actually in the week. In terms of the police, they were involved in the SAG. They are absolutely fully aware of what is going on. We have a police presence doing the security checks with us Saturday morning. Beyond that, we do not have the influence to insist that there are more police officers around. All I can say, we have a good relationship with them through CCTV. Should there be a presence or should there be an incident, I'm sure they will arrive very quickly, but that bit is a little bit out of our control as to, who they provide and how many people they actually send round.
Yeah. I've got Councillor Fradgley, please.
Thank you, Chair. During the last fair, etc., that we had, Banbury Road was lined with lorries. And because they couldn't get over Clopton Bridge, and they didn't really want to come into Stratford anyway. There are other ways of getting from A to B without coming through Stratford. Are we going to be highlighting to in particular the lorries, that they don't need to come through Stratford Centre in order to get to from A to B?
Yeah, we're not quite sure how we do that, actually, because we don't know what lorries would actually come through on any one day. I think the fact that we're not running the market on a Thursday and Friday, and you don't get quite as many lorries at the weekend, should really help. Obviously, we will have signage out, we will have publicity out, we will have promotions out. I'm not quite sure beyond that, actually, what more we can do. Because we don't have access to any individual lorry driver that's actually coming through at any one point. But, the signage will be out accordingly, showing that the Christmas market is on.
Right, anybody else want to speak before we go around a second time? Councillor Wally Hoggins, please.
It's just a follow-on question from Councillor Fransley's question to do with the lorries. Actually, there is signage that you could put up. You could put up signs off the Clifford Bridge, off the Clifford Chambers Road there, saying alternative route to avoid Stratford city centre during that. Are those sorts of signs going up, directing them via Wellesbourne and straight onto the motorway network from there? Because that does actually make sense, and I personally think it's a route that should be promoted. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly that. Sorry, I thought you meant, were we talking to individual lorry drivers, which we can't do? But no, certainly we will make sure that signage is out saying, avoid if possible, so to speak, and showing where the road closures are and identifying alternate routes. So yes, certainly.
So, sorry, I'm being a bit pedantic here, but so the alternative route signage then for the HGV lorry drivers, because they've got timed deliveries to make and driver regulations to obey, will those signage for new lorry drivers to the area be very clear as to what the route is, like a diversion, so that you're continually picking up alternative route to avoid? Will those signs be out properly, or just strange maps that people have to look at from the cab door? Thank you.
So we do have a traffic management plan in place already, and that's been agreed. I would have to go back to the company that we use and just put those points to them, but I'm sure we can possibly put something in place for that. We're a week out, so I'd need to go back to them and see if they've got that signage available, but we can certainly push that one, definitely. Thank you.
Julie, I did have visions of you with the CB radio trying to contact all the lorry drivers as they were coming down the A46, but unfortunately that's not going to happen now. But Councillor Johnston, do you want to come in, please?
I just want to make the point that these, certainly the Saturdays of the market, are the busiest days at Wellesbourne Market, and the notion of diversion around Stratford via Wellesbourne is going to be potentially difficult. And I notice it's on our agenda for the 10th of January. So one of the things I think we need to be monitoring is the wider traffic impact.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair and sensible point, Councillor Johnson. And obviously that will be as part of the minutes as well. So yeah, I think that's really positive. Anybody else want to come in? I've got one little point before we move on. Anybody else? It's just on the emergency services response scheme again. Just to make sure there is access, particularly from fire and rescue point of view. I know they can move vehicles very quickly that they're in the way, but obviously any delay in response to an incident could make the difference. So again, if that's added as well, so that will be positive. Anything else? I'd just like to finish. I am disappointed though, Lorraine, that it's not going to be a Victorian one walking around in Victorian clothes, because that's my normal get up. I mean, I've got me bar humbug here as well, so I am slightly disappointed. But on a serious note, good luck with this. Obviously, the implications and discussions about coming back in January. Hope it all goes well. There's no problems, and everybody enjoys themselves. So even those people like me, Ebenezer Crump, who will be trying to get there as soon as he can. So have a good time, good luck. Thanks to all the officers involved with all the work, especially you, Andy, good man. Us Andys have got to stick together. And good luck, and thank you for coming. And the next item is concessionary parking permits update. So, you again, Julie, you're kicking off, or is it you, Lorraine?
Thank you, Chair. So we, the pensioner, the concessionary parking permits were introduced 1st of October last year, which allowed residents over state pension age to be able to park in the Bridgeway car park for 4 hours a day from Monday to Friday. And this was for a charge of £50 a year. The idea of this was to fulfil our manifesto pledge to allow people to be able to come into the Stratford town more easily, to be able to socialise and work in charity shops, and to combat any sort of rural isolation that might have been apparent from the pandemic. So this has been running now. It's £50 a year, and it has. We have managed to sell at the moment a number of permits, and it has been well received amongst the residents. The fact that we can offer, using the Bridgeway car park, is to use the ANPR facilities there to be able to monitor the usage of these permits and to also make sure they're not being abused. I mean, there was previously a concessionary parking permit scheme which was £10 to be able to use the recreation grounds car park, I think for all day, for 5 days a week, I believe. Is that true? Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So, but we felt that this was not appropriate going forward. With the ANPR, we can monitor exactly the usage of the concessionary car parks, and we have been able to do some analysis from the database that is compiled from the payments that are made with ANPR. So from this, we can see that we have sold over the year, I think it was 147, but I think we've had an increase, have we? 151 car park permits in the 12 months. And from analysis of this, we can see these permits were used 6,000, well, there was the over 66 permits were used 6,430 times, and they was used on average of once a week. So we can. So what this allows us to do is to see exactly how many times these car parking permits are being used, how much the potential, the potential shortfall in income is for the car parks. Our car parks, bearing in mind that car park utilisation is down, so we do not want to be losing lots of money on this, but we also want to make sure that we are getting good value on behalf of our residents. Okay, but also the increase in the charge from £10 to £50 a year was also to ensure that the administrative charges of this scheme were actually covered as well. So this is what we pledged to do during our election last year, and this is what we have managed to achieve. So if you have any questions on this, be pleased to take them. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Wiley-Huggins, please.
Yes, thank you. So my rough maths, which actually wasn't really, I was looking at Councillor Skinner's calculations there. I believe this then has generated £7,550 in income. Can you therefore tell us, I was quite intrigued by the high number of, there's quite a lot of hours of usage there. What is the shortfall then? What you talked about that, you mentioned the shortfall, but you didn't tell us what the shortfall was. How much would all of those hours of car parking have generated in income for the council, please?
Well, it's difficult to say because, I mean, with car parking itself, they utilise, we do get a regular income from car parking. Since the pandemic, it has been reduced. We can see from the takings that the amount of use that less people are using our car parks. So it's difficult to quantify. I mean, would those people actually be planning to come into town if they didn't have a pensioner permit?
I'm sorry, that's not the question that I asked.
Okay, sorry, no, I'm not being.
The question that I asked, because you said that the number of hours that they've parked for with those permits.
Yes.
Right. So take away the fact that they've got the permits. Let's pretend that they didn't have the permits.
Okay.
How much money would those hours of car parking have generated for this council?
Okay. Go on, sorry.
I think I'll try to answer that one, and I don't think I can really answer it. The bit we don't know, what we know is that the users we've got are using the car park an average of an hour a week. Now, if you actually said you can get a free hour at Bridgeway anyway, if all they're using is an hour a week, you could actually say it's generated as income that we wouldn't have generated otherwise because they would have got an hour's free. I mean, the cost, what we don't, it's really hard to say because I think the people that have bought the permit have bought it because they think, well, actually, we would possibly save money by not paying the hourly rate each time they come in. But what you don't know is if they hadn't had the permit, would they then cut the amount of hours that they actually come into town? And I think the problem is I'm not one to, I cannot provide stats and figures with it. I just don't have the evidence because we just don't know what would people have done. We're talking about behaviour and how they might have acted and what ifs, and I just can't compare with, well, if we didn't do that, we might have got this income, they might not have come, they might have parked somewhere else, they might have what, you just don't know. I don't think I can put a figure on it.
Sorry, could I just add as well? Obviously, we're not trying to be difficult here, Councillor Wally-Hoggins. It's just a case of, you know, we do not know how people's behaviour, you know, can be influenced by this. What we wanted to do was offer people that could potentially be, be discouraged from coming to town, encourage them to come into town. And the cost to the council itself, as in officers' time and that, is covered by the £50, okay, for the thing. One of the last things we want to be doing is actually encouraging lots and lots and lots of people to come into the town in some respects, because we want to be discouraging car use. So it's, you know, so there is, what we want to be doing is not encouraging lots of people to come in per se, but just making sure that people that might feel restrained from coming because of the costs are actually encouraged to come in.
Do you want to come back later? Yeah. Councillor Passingham, please.
Yeah, we've already mentioned that there's congestion in the middle of town, and there's especially congestion on the Clopton Bridge. So is it wise to be encouraging more people to come into town with these concessionary permits when there are free bus passes for people of pensionable age to come in, and the numbers on the buses have gone down, I think, since the pandemic. So we need to encourage them and keep our bus services running.
Yes, that's a very good point, Councillor Passingham. We do need to be discouraging people to be on the roads in their cars. We do need to be encouraging them to be on buses. But as we're seeing with things like the reduction new bus, etc., at the moment, the bus service we have in lots of areas, because we are a very rural area, is not adequate to allow people to be able to come into town easily. So this is an initiative now to working with what we have, but we totally take your point. We do need to be encouraging bus use and encouraging the county council as the people that provide the bus services to give one that actually works for our residents, rather than, like, as you say, have everybody sitting on the gyratory, everybody sitting on Warwick Road, on Banbury Road and on Birmingham Road trying to get into town.
Any other questions? Or I'll come in one whilst we're waiting. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I just want some clarification, actually, on the numbers that you did give. And I understand it's difficult to be precise on these things, but you have the APNR numbers. And did I hear you correctly saying that these passes had been used some 6,000, some 100 times earlier? You mentioned 6,000 hours or 6,000 times the permits were used. Can you clarify those numbers for me, please?
Sorry, the information that we've got to clarify, and I did these figures a couple of weeks ago, was at that point we'd sold 147 parking permits. It's now gone up to 151 because we're a couple of weeks later. So, yeah, between the 1st of October and the end of September, which was the full year, they were used 6,430 times. Now, if you average that out, that averages out to 43.74 times per permit, or approximately once a week. But what we don't know, we haven't got the data to say that was one person that used it 6,000 times, or whether it was 10 people or whatever. But I think, to be honest, the numbers are low. Whatever you do with the numbers statistically, you're working with 147, as I did these figures at that time, in terms of numbers that are coming in.
Well, okay, but going back to the question that Councillor Huggins asked, you have got some basis there. You can make some assumptions, and you could actually calculate just on the number of times, even if they stayed for 2 hours, which is 50% of the time they're allocated to stay, because I don't think anybody will come and park for 1 hour and go away again. So you could say that they're there for 2 hours, and so you could multiply those up by the fee that would have been taken for the 2 hours.
Sorry, if I can just come in there, we could make lots and lots of assumptions. My point is, I haven't got any solid evidence to actually say this is what would have happened, this is what actually did happen, because they are assumptions. And, you know, and again, bearing in mind, we're talking about 147, you know, people. I could put all sorts of facts on and say it would have cost us this, it would have cost us that, but there would be absolutely that assumptions. And I won't provide assumptions when I can't back it up and give you good, solid proof.
Okay. Sorry, could I come back in then?
That's great.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, also, these figures are being picked up by the Sagos database, which is when you go in and out of Bridgeway, that's what it collects the data on, who's gone in, you know, gets the registration number, how long they've been there, how much they pay. Obviously, it's a database, and to get this information, officers have just very quickly gone through the raw data. We do not want to make this more costly than it needs to be to implement. So if we could, the data is there, and we could get information, but we would have to be paying a software company to actually write the queries to make all this information and bring the things. So we are just looking at the raw data here. We're not we're not proposing getting an application written specially to query that database, which obviously would get this sort of data, that sort of increment, exactly how many times this car comes in. But is that cost-effective use of council money? That's what I would say.
Brilliant, thank you for that. I've got a couple of points. Obviously, 151 isn't particularly a big number, considering we've got a population roughly of 135,000. I've just looked online. And I know from figures in the past, and I'm sure Mr. Careford would probably be able to help me as well, or Jo, she's good with figures as well somewhere. Oh, is she gone?
No, she's in the corner. Oh,
she's in the corner, sorry. You're hiding, Jo. We've roughly got a population of 27% that's pensionable age, if I remember. If we got Simon Perfield here, he'd be able to just do it like that. Simon, if you do want to come in and say I'm talking rubbish, but I think we've got a population of roughly about 27% of pensionable age. You're on mute, please. You're on mute, Simon. Can you hear me? I bet you wish the chair was on mute most of the time, don't you? I can tell. We'll come back to you, Simon. We can't hear you, I'm afraid. Unless you want to put something in a message to Howard. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I've got, as a Councillor Crump, sorry, I've got that information.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Simon worked with us to provide the information.
Yeah.
So, and I have done this on a nice glossy PowerPoint that we could show you if you want, but we're talking about 151 people. So again, statistically, you know, what are we saying? So,
no, Julia, I think the question was, what I'm trying to get to is that we've got roughly around about 36,000 people of pensionable age.
33,900.
That was not far off there.
But we have to take those numbers on, that's over 65s, because that's the census data, not over 66, so I will clarify that. So the total amount of over 65s on that 2021 census data is 33,900, which is 25.16% of the total.
Yeah. So yeah, I was.
And that's possibly what Simon would have told you, because he gave me the figures, but they're all in. We can share this with you, but
Yeah. So yeah, what I was trying to get to is in terms of audience availability, the uptake has been minuscule. So whether there just need to be some more promotion, or is this the right thing to do? And secondly, what I would like to know, if possible, is I would imagine from my area, Southam CV47, there would be very few of those 151 using that. And again, I don't particularly want details now. You could do it at a later date. It just seemed to be an initiative that really seems to be Stratford Town, Stratford-centric based, perhaps within 5 to 10 miles of Stratford Town centre, maybe. But I think you were saying about rural buses. This wouldn't help the issue with rural buses, because people wouldn't be using the car park, wouldn't be using their cars from Southam to pay £50 a year to come here. So I just do think this is an initiative that is mainly based towards the west of the district. Obviously, I'm in the east, and it does seem to be Stratford Town centric. So some ideas of how many of those 151 were in the CV47 area would be positive. Please.
Yes, thank you. I mean, obviously, we take your points about being town centric. I mean, from the figures that Julie run, I mean, out of them, there were 67 that were inside the town, and over 80 that are outside the town. And what you've got to remember is that for Stratford town residents are slightly disadvantaged in that they have to pay for parking in their town centres. No other town in the whole district has to pay, apart from Telegraph Street, they have to pay sort of, oh yeah, I know Telegraphs, don't, yes, all right. Telegraph Street. So, you know, there is a disparity there. So that could be a reason why people from Stratford Town are paying. But as I say, it's definitely not the vast majority. Thank you.
I think we slightly comparing apples and pears with going to visit Southam than visiting Shakespeare's the Royal Spa Centre. Yeah. We are trying to attract more visitors to Southam, but I think we're slightly comparing apples with pears, but we will go on. Councillor Wally-Hoggins, please.
Yeah, I remain deeply uncomfortable about this scheme. You've got nearly 50% of the permit holders are within the town centre area for the take-up. I'm disappointed that we weren't given a map or some written information about this. I know it's just an update, but a map would have been useful for it. I believe there's one resident in Southam potentially who's got a permit, who's using that permit. But you know, the uptake and the telling us that you know, it's helping the pensioners because it's a, you know, with the barrier to the cost of coming into town. Many people have a barrier to do with the cost of coming into town, and I don't think that by anybody's standards this could be described as an overwhelming success, really. And I do wonder, although you say that the £50 fee should be covering administration charges, you know, whether are you planning to continue with this scheme, or is it going to be reviewed? Thank you.
At this point, we are looking to continue this scheme. It has, like I say, moving forward, we're using the technology we have with the ANPR to make sure this is monitored properly. I mean, the thing was, the previous scheme, I mean, I think it had about 1,500 permits, but in a lot of ways, it was, you could use it 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. What was there not to like? I mean, in this way, we are making sure we're trying to balance people who are struggling to get into town and can't use buses at the moment against making sure that people that can pretty much afford it are being able to get into town and you know, look at places like the tourist place, which isn't really the things. So, it's people to do their shopping.
So are you going to think about extending it to other age groups then, who are also struggling financially, other than the headline capturing of pensionable age? Thank you.
This was not, this was to encourage people to come into town that might be suffering with rural isolation. Other age groups generally tend to be either working or in families. I mean, we're talking more like elderly people that might be on their own. So this was the more of a well-being and of the community rather than a, looking at supporting people with the cost of living crisis.
Sorry, I have to continue this. I live in one of the most rural wards here. Rural isolation is an issue for all age groups. And to say that this is only something that affects the elderly part of the population or the retired population, I think is disingenuous. And I think that particularly those in the rural areas are the ones that struggle the most with public transport. Those that have the large uptake in the town centre housing, they don't struggle for any sort of transport, whereas in the further outer reaches, then they absolutely do. And it isn't just about rural isolation, it's also about mental health. Everybody is affected through that. And I'm just interested as to why we continue to earmark those, and the majority of those benefiting from it. And I would suggest it would be the ones that are people living nearer. If we saw a map outlining where they are, I'm sure the map would tell us that the closer you are to Stratford, the more likely you are to have this travel permit. And I remain, as I say, dismayed by this scheme. Thank you.
No, thank you for your comments, Councillor Wally-Hoggins. Obviously, I understand with you having a rural ward that rural isolation would be a concern of yours. And this is one of the reasons why this administration has paid to have an outreach worker for everyone active to provide community activities and sporting activities within villages away from the Stratford town centre and the other town centres to make sure that we do address those social issues as well.
Forgive me, but I don't think that I've seen any of those coordinators. That is really disingenuous. Nobody like that's ever turned up to Witchford and Ascot or Barton on the Heath or the Wolfords.
Can we just stick to the can we just stay on the permit, please? I know it's some.
Well, no, because Councillor Wally-Hoggins made a point. I was just addressing that.
So, if you stick to the permit. Judy, do you want to come in and add something on that, please?
Yeah, can I just clarify a couple of points? There's been a couple of references made to the previous concessionary scheme. Can I just clarify that previous concessionary scheme ended, a good 2.5 years ago? So I think it's difficult, in some sense to say, to compare the data. It also ended kind of I think it was mid-COVID. And our whole kind of transport park in the world has changed since then. But to clarify, it was a 7-day-a-week scheme. It wasn't just Monday to Friday, and it was actually at £10. But it was a very different scheme to what's here. But as I say, it hasn't ran for, I think, 2 years, 3 years. 3 years ago, I couldn't remember when it was stopped because of the various issues at that time. The other thing I would just clarify is that we absolutely do have the 147 permits, which were the numbers I had when I ran this data a couple of weeks ago, all presented on PowerPoint in a nice pie chart, broken down by postcode, where you can see where they actually come from, and committee services can share that with you after this meeting. So we do have that data. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that, Julie. Councillor Rolfe, please, and then Councillor Johnston.
I think it's also important to note that the previous scheme was introduced by the previous administration to help older people with rural isolation and to encourage older people to come into town. So, just saying.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Johnston, please.
I just wanted to make the point that given the size of this district and the geographical spread, I think it is inevitable that it's people close to Stratford who are going to want to use this. I guess people from Wellesbourne get a choice about Stratford or Leamington. People in Southam get a much bigger range, and I suggest Councillor Waller-Hoggins, people are as likely to go into Banbury than to want to come into Stratford. And I don't know, we are therefore dependent on, I think, decisions that are made elsewhere, not just here.
One of the things I did ask, because the residents in Southam do tend to levitate more towards Leamington than Stratford, because obviously it's far closer and quite easier to get there, apart from when HS2 are closing the roads. Whether there would be some reciprocal arrangement between ourselves and Warwick District. So potentially some people from Southam went to Warwick or Leamington, and then some people from Leamington and Warwick could come to Stratford. You know, just again, different demographic, different type of people coming in. But I believe that Warwick District wouldn't join in the process. So I did come up with that suggestion. I didn't think it was unreasonable, and it was explored. But yeah, so the only thing, I think we've done this pretty well. I do know that obviously it is interlinked. Again, we were talking about transport and the impact on buses and etc. and park and ride and car park. So yeah, I think there just needs to be some joined up work on this and talking about this. I do know it's important because we are trying to make our towns less polluted, and obviously we are trying to encourage people to use the park and ride or sustainable transport. But then there's the balance of car parking income, which I think at period 6 had a shortfall of 100k. So there is that balance. If we can encourage people to use the park and ride and the buses, that would be happy. And I do know anecdotally people are using the buses with their parking concessionary bus pass, going from place to place, because one, they see people, and two, the buses are far warmer potentially in their own homes. And I know people who are doing that, going around catching buses and going around the district, because one, they can see people, and two, they don't have to put the heating on. So that's just some information I've got. So thank you for this. It's pleasing to hear that we've got the breakdown of the permits. I do think it hasn't been a particularly success. 151 out of a potential population available of 34,000 isn't brilliant. And I certainly think whether we could potentially look at extending it to certain vulnerable or people who need this might be a future option for the administration. But yeah, so I think we've talked about this quite a bit. And thank you for coming and being open and frank on this. Thank you. We'll do the minutes from the climate change panel, and then we'll have a break. One, because my voice is going, and there's a couple of technical issues that we need to resolve. And then we'll have the cabinet meeting papers and the joint cabinet meeting after that. So item number 6 on pages 1 to 28, which is the climate change panel minutes of the 5th of November. There were fireworks that night, you know. Oh, come on, you don't all have to not laugh at that one. Good. So any comments on those? Councillor Keithley, were you happy that I was there and obviously you were there? Any issues on those or any comments? Or you?
No, I haven't got nothing this time, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, just to highlight though that the biodiversity projects will be eligible for the Community Climate Change Fund round 2, which comes in early in the new year. Yeah,
brilliant. And we'll make a note of that in the minutes as well, just so it's in the public domain as many times as possible. Councillor Johnston, please.
Can I just say that I thought the Council Climate Assembly was a really successful event and engaged a number of people. A lot of conversation developed, and I think it was a really worthwhile exercise, and want to thank everybody involved in organising it.
On the first page of the feedback, page 7, more active travel across the district. That was quite quite appropriate with booze of what we've been talking about. So if you're happy that we agree those minutes, or note the minutes, not agree the minutes, are we happy with that? Brilliant. Super, thank you. So I'm proposing now, and if I want to, I'm looking for a seconder, that we have a brief 5-minute-ish break. One, so we can clear our throats, and two, to resolve some slight technical issues. Councillor Johnson, you happy to second that we have a... All those in favour? Brilliant, thank you. So if we could back just after, just before 15:15 then, please. That would be good, thank you. Right, welcome back. Thank you for this. I believe the technical problems have now been resolved. And we'll move on to item 7, the Cabinet meeting for the 2nd of December. We're looking at 3 items on this, which is the Warm Homes Local Grant, the adoption of the Infrastructure Funding Statement, IFS 23-24, and performance monitoring for quarter 2. So, who wants to kick off on this one? Yeah, the warm up.
Were you thinking of introducing the warm homes, Nick, or just hit the questions?
Yeah, okay, that sounds a good way to introduce this. Well done, Nick. Yeah. No, that's fine. You introduce it. You know, the warm homes is very good. We won't say warm beards. We'll say warm homes. Thank you.
Better now?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. Right, let's canter through this as quickly as we can. So Warm Homes Local Grant will replace Home Upgrade Grant 2 from the 1st of April 2025. And similarly to Hugs 2, Hugs 1, LADS 3, LADS 2, LADS 1B, is our way, or the government's way, of providing energy performance upgrades to kind of poor performing homes in order to improve fuel poverty figures, improve health and well-being, and contribute towards the net zero aspirations for the UK. The report requests that we engage with the programme. It requests that we engage with the programme through the Midland Net Zero Hub, who are the regional consortium lead, and that it delegates authority to head of service for award of contracts and for any discretionary elements of the scheme. In terms of background, it's part of our aspiration to treat 5 million homes across the UK. It's part of, well, it replaces Home Upgrade 2, as I've said previously. Delivery commences in April, as I've said previously. Targets the most leaky or fuel inefficient homes, so those are properties with an energy performance certificate banded between D and G. The scheme parameters have been broadened significantly to include properties that are both on and off gas. The current scheme only applies to properties that are off the gas network, and this is an issue that affects our district particularly. Warm Homes Local Grant has an unlimited number of park homes that will be eligible for it, rather than a 10% of your total delivery, which is the case with Hugs 2. Warm Homes Local Grant is also open to the private rented sector in certain conditions. In terms of the value of the scheme, there are some figures in the report that you will see at the financial section, but those are yet to be confirmed, although they are probably reasonably reflective of where our ultimate allocation will end up. Moving on to previous performance, I think it would be fair to say that with all of the previously mentioned schemes, we have been on a trajectory of improving performance over the years. Each scheme has seen more delivery, but I don't think we could ever claim to have delivered our maximum, allotted capital sum. However, the good news is that the current scheme, Hugs 2, and the final year of it, we hope to deliver 80 property retrofits, which will be, I think, double our highest previous figures. So, I don't think we're performing badly. The reasons I think that we can attribute to the performance not meeting our kind of aspirations are the short timescale of the schemes. Hugs 2 is a 24-month scheme. It took pretty much 12 months to get it going, which only left us 12 months to deliver. public confusion around grants programs. I think anybody who's on social media will probably get these pop-ups from time to time saying, oh, get your loft insulated. Do you want solar panels on your roof or photovoltaics on your roof? Do you want air source heat pump? And I think one of the things we've battled with these schemes over the years is sort of credibility in the public eye. The schemes are hideously complicated, and I'm more than willing to go into the complexities of them with anybody who would want me to, because I think necessarily in some cases, but unnecessarily in others, they are extremely complicated. And identifying certified delivery partners has been a challenge, particularly on mobile homes, where we've had to do some work to bring a local installer up to standard to enable us to have a supply of appropriately trained operatives and you know, a partner that can actually deliver the installation improvements that are required. Just then moving on to our delivery expectations, you can see in the report the best figures we have at the moment in terms of our capital allocations for year 1 and year 2 are at section 1.12.2, which is about £470,000 for year 1 and £510,000 for year 2, although we have been given the opportunity to challenge that, and we have challenged that, and we're going for the 810,000 and 880,000 that's indicated in the table. But we don't know yet whether we'll be successful with our challenge. Our challenge is premised on the basis that the allocation formula looks at your previous best 6 months performance, but the 6 months we're going through at the moment is our best 6 months performance, and that is not eligible to be considered as part of those previous 6 months. 6 months best performance. And what we've said to Midland Net Zero Hub and DESNES is that we're on a trajectory that sees us improving this. You know, every scheme we've delivered better than the last scheme, and now we are performing really strongly. So you know, we're kind of countering that to exclude the last 6 months of HUGS 2 as a period to be considered in that allocation formula is a bit of a nonsense, especially as we're moving to a more generous scheme than has previously been the case, with on-gas properties being included and mobile homes being included as well. So, just moving, well, I think I'll move to the recommendations because the rest of the report just reinforces what I've said already. The recommendations, as you can see, are to engage with the programme. I think it's a good programme. It's better than the last programme. The government have listened to the sector. I think the consortium approach has worked for us in the past. It does cost a small amount of our allocation for the delivery of the scheme, but it saves a great deal of officer time and organisational time in applying for this as an individual organisation. We also get a huge amount of expertise from the Midland Net Zero Hub. And there's a couple of delegations there to the head of service for the technical details of the contracting and any discretionary terms that we may or may not wish to include in our local scheme. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Nick. That was very helpful and informative. Councillor Rolfe, please, if you want to open.
Thank you. Nick, I'm quite interested to know, in practical terms, how it works. Do you go to them, knowing having the information that you have, people on benefits, people in private, or do they come to you? How is it out there in the ether? Because it's something that's brilliant and there, but I'm not sure the majority of people are aware of it. So how does that information get out, and how do you go to people and say, this is what you can have if you need it?
Okay, there's several routes that we've used. We've used the promotion activities across Act on Energy. So Act on Energy have a great website presence. They do a lot of promotional activity amongst the communities that kind of will benefit from this. They have a lot of people applying to them for energy grants because, as you'll be aware, sort of grant funding to support people who are struggling with energy costs or their heating system breaks all goes through Act on Energy. So there's a lot of ins there. There's also an outreach worker that they employ to promote this kind of activity. So that's the Act on Energy side of things. We've also done a lot of targeted Facebook adverts. So not just putting something on Facebook, but actually segmenting it to a particular subsection of the Facebook kind of usership. We've also utilised and directed people towards that. There is a gov.uk eligibility checker, and that's quite that's proved to be quite a useful source of leads because credibility is a real issue in this world. You know, we'll all be familiar with the kind of mis-selling that's gone on over the years and installations that haven't quite gone right. So the gov.uk eligibility checker adds a degree of credibility to our scheme and has proved a really useful source of referrals. I think the challenge with the scheme is for a large part of it, you had to be on an income of less than £31,000, which perhaps seems like a reasonable amount of money, but there aren't that many people in the district that are on an income of less than that, who also live in a property that's off gas. And I think this is the challenge. A lot of people can self-assess whether they're eligible for it or not, because if you've got any kind of gas, appliance in your house, you're not eligible for it. If you're on mains gas. So when I say it's been a difficult sell, I think it's not been a difficult sell because we've not been able to project what the scheme is about, but I think it's been a difficult sell because it's a very restrictive scheme. And the reason for that is because as a nation, we have been trying to discourage the use of fossil fuels, of which natural gas is one. Now, with the current government, the emphasis has shifted to the alleviation of fuel poverty rather than our kind of net zero ambitions. So that's why you can see things like the natural gas coming back into the under the umbrella of scheme eligibility.
If I may, just a very quick follow-up. I think probably the other barrier is those people that are living in private rented properties probably think they're automatically exempt. For the reason being that they probably don't think they fit the threshold because they are paying privately, so they're paying more money. I mean, it's obviously an odd thing because they're probably less well off than the other because they are probably paying a lot more rent. Well, do you find that's been a difficult one, that difficult barrier?
Well, you're absolutely right. Private rented sector is slightly different in that for Hugs 2, the private rented sector hasn't even been eligible. So the private rented sector is not eligible, and it will be now, which I think gives us something else to go at. And I think it's quite generous in terms of the private rented sector, the way the scheme's set up. So I would hope that we would be able to do significantly more with the private rented sector than nil, which is what we've done in the current scheme because it's not eligible.
Well, in which case, Chair, it's a very good thing. Excellent scheme.
Yep, some good points well made there, Councillor Rolfe. Councillor Littlewood, please.
Thank you.
Chair, sorry, I want to come in because I think I need to declare an interest as a board member of Act on Energy.
Yep. No, we'll make a note of that. It's a not beginning, but you're being open and transparent. So, yeah, no, that's fine, and I'm sure you didn't mind, Councillor Littlewood. And it's like I say, sometimes you're in the meeting, and then something triggers. Oh, flipping heck! I should have declared. So that's fine. So no need to apologise, and thank you for raising that. And well done, Councillor Littlewood, for standing by. So Councillor Johnson could come. So after that false start, if you want to start again, and come on in, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment before my question, if I may, with regard to Councillor Rolfe's comments about publication. I certainly, as a ward member, went round all my parish councils and got them to put it up on the parish notice boards, put it onto their Facebooks, and indeed it was those who have the printed newsletters or booklets, it went in there as an advert as well. And I think it behoves us all to try and support these schemes, because it's a very, very good scheme by the same sound of it. But I do note the changes between Hugs 2 and this current Warm Homes local grant process, which I think is a good thing. One of the feedback, however, and this is my question, one of the feedbacks I got from the previous scheme was, and it was a couple of occasions, was householders who'd looked at privately upgrading their system found that the, I think it was, in this case, it was an electricity company, I won't name it, that came in at some 25% above market pricing. What are we doing, or do we have any responsibility for ensuring that there's good value for money from the providers?
Yeah, the way we procure the actual delivery of the installation for the Hugs 2 scheme has been to take a provider off a framework agreement, which has been tendered by the provider of the framework agreement, if that makes sense. And we partnered with E.ON to do that, and E.ON are they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses, like all providers. We moved from a previous provider because of some delivery challenges. So we dropped our last provider and went with a new provider in recognition that we weren't wholly happy with the last provider. What I would like to do, if we're able to do it with this scheme, is to appoint more than one provider so that we have a little bit of leverage over them. How we verify that the kind of cost is through a batching process under Hugs 2. So the way that operates is that when we've identified a number of properties that are suitable and qualify for a retrofit of some type or another, they're batched together, submitted to Midland Net Zero Hub, that then do some benchmarking around the pricing. That then determines a sort of yes or no on pricing, and they are checking those against kind of a benchmark set of installation, average installation costs. So there are there are some safeguards in there against kind of cost inflation, which I think probably does exist within this world. Yeah, I'm confident that reasonable steps are being taken both by us as an authority in who we procure to deliver it, and by the system, by the systematic checking of or just systematic comparison of one piece of similar activity against another piece of similar activity. But I would say that there has been some cost inflation in this area over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, because there's a great deal more demand for air source heat pumps being a really good example. Great more demand for air source heat pumps, more demand for photovoltaic cells. So yeah, I think to a degree, the fact that these will go up in price is a little inevitable, I'm afraid.
Do you want to come just very quick on that?
Thank you. Yeah, that's fine, and we do need benchmarking, and we do need comparisons. And you talked about E.ON, which is a national provider, very remote. We have a lot of local providers who are extremely proficient and busy as well. So I would like to think that we were supporting local industry as much as national industry, if that is possible.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and a case in point would be our work with the installer of Park Home, external wall insulation. We work with a local-ish provider. I think they're Leicester-based. I know that isn't local in the sense that it's Stratford, but when we looked at that, we did want to find. We want a delivery chain, if you like, that is local to us, because I think from my experience of these projects, if you can collaborate with local partners, you're probably going to build a stronger offer than if you're with a national provider where you're a bit anonymous, really.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Councillor Keithley, you're next, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Well, I'm very pleased to see this come forward, to be honest. My experience of talking to people about the HUG scheme was they thought it was a bit overly complicated. There's a lot of scepticism out with the residents in respect of installers of retrofitting loft insulation, draft proofing and all this other stuff. So extending it to homes that are not just oil-fired central heating, picking up gas in the park homes, I think it's a good thing. I did put out feelers, a bit like Councillor Littlewood actually, well, probably not as successfully as Councillor Littlewood, to parish councils when HUGS 2 was being promoted. But I found, I won't call it resistance, but a bit of apathy towards helping to communicate this. I do think we've got some work to do with the parish councils because they are closer to the ground. They've got notice boards and such like to get to people. It's actually otherwise quite difficult to get to the targets. And I note the numbers in terms of the number of retrofits that we've achieved is quite low relatively. But I think this is opening up a new world to us, a much bigger target market to improve the conditions of residents that have got poorly insulated homes. So I'm very much in favour of it.
Councillor Keithley. Councillor Johnson, please. Or was that you indicated because of the previous thing? No, that's fine. Councillor Skinner, please.
Thank you, Chair. A point really leads on from what Councillor Littlewood was saying from a financial overview and scrutiny that you're doing. What are we doing in terms of scrutinising the actual workmanship? There's been a lot of reports in the media over the last kind of year or two of really substandard work done on people's homes. Obviously, we have a duty of care as the owner of this tender to ensure that work is done to a suitable standard. I'm just wondering what kind of checks and balances we got in place to ensure that.
Yeah, I think the checks and balances are, central to the credibility of the scheme. I agree with you, and there's been a lot of mis-selling around these kind of products over the years. So residents are right to be, cautious before they embark upon it. I've said how bureaucratic this scheme is, and I said that some of that is necessary, and in my view, some of that is less necessary. The necessary parts are things like retrofit assessment of the home at the outset. So what you get, so you apply for the scheme. If you qualify in broad terms, so the EPC and the income level, somebody will go to your house. They will conduct a full retrofit assessment, and that's a professionally qualified assessment by somebody who is a retrofit assessor. They will then write a prescription for the work. That then goes through the process of batching and approval, and then the work has to be undertaken by a Trustmark accredited provider. So that's a skilled organisation where they've passed a number of tests in terms of their ability to install. They've carried out an installation. They've had it inspected. It's passed its inspection, and of course then where planning, not so much planning, but where planning or building control needed to be involved, they would be involved in that process sign off. So I think it's a blessing and curse. It's a very bureaucratic scheme, but part of that bureaucracy is to address exactly the kind of concerns that you've raised.
Thank you for that. Councillor Passingham, please.
Yeah, are housing associations on a different scheme?
Housing associations this is all part of I think it's called the Sustainable Warmth competition. Housing association tenants cannot access this scheme, but housing associations can deliver this kind of programme using similar funding, but through a different scheme, if that makes sense. But they would probably do, as we've done before, a whole estate external wall insulation, because they control all the properties on the estate, so it's easy to kind of mass a significant number of properties.
Do you monitor what Orbit, well, in particular Orbit, because I think they've got the older housing stock. Do you monitor how many houses they're retrofitting and what's going on?
With the I can't remember the name of the scheme now, but I think there was a scheme that kicked off right in the midst of COVID, and the council had to front that scheme for housing associations that were going to deliver it in their area, and we did for a couple of rounds of that scheme, and I think at least 60 properties were undertaken in one level, in one tranche of that scheme. Subsequent to that, housing associations haven't needed to come through the district council to oversee or validate the work. So, previously, yes, in answer to your question, yes, we have been aware because we've had to oversee it and front it on behalf of the housing association. But now the housing associations go direct to DESNZ, I think, for the schemes that they operate. So latterly, no.
Thank you. Councillor Hoggins, you indicated earlier?
Sorry about my earlier indisposition there. Could you just tell me, please, what are the success criteria for Stratford District with regard to this? Just in broad terms, how many houses, how many residents do you want to hit? It's as simple as that, really. Thank you.
Okay, for me, this scheme, Warm Homes Local Grant, I would like to spend all of our capital allocation.
Next question, sorry. And on section 4 of the recommendations, it says that approval be given that the addition of any discretionary terms for scheme eligibility. What are those discretionary terms potentially going to be?
Okay, so one really good example would be somebody applies to utilise the scheme. They're self-employed rather than PAYE. They take very little salary, but their house is worth £1 million. So on income, they may present as having a fairly low income, but they are, considerably wealthier, possibly in property terms, than the average person. Now, I'm not saying that would be our determinant, but it's that type of. We have some more freedom to set our own terms around that than on the previous scheme, and I think we will. When we know more about this scheme, we will come up with a number of parameters that where we think that people may be able to afford to undertake these measures for themselves.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Yeah, I've just got a couple of quick questions, Nick. Yeah, it's encouraging that they broaden the parameters to include on-gas and park homes and potentially the private rental as well. Two concerns. My ears pricked up when you said hideously complicated. And I understand for certain reasons in terms of paying the contractor, the checks and balances that Councillor Skinner mentioned, that is fine and it's using public money. My concern is that some of these people who could be eligible for this are being put off by this. They maybe have some vulnerability, and it just seemed to be a bit of a pattern when you're trying to get a grant or trying to apply for pension credit or trying for attendance allowance. The forms are shocking. And it's whether that is deliberate, where we can do any feedback to say that they do need to be made more user-friendly. And my question to that is, how much support do you provide for somebody who needs it to get a successful grant application?
Okay, so the way it operates with the current scheme, which I can't be absolutely certain will be the way it operates with the new scheme, because we don't know who will occupy this role yet. But the current scheme, there is a customer journey support partner, and that customer journey support partner is Acton Energy. Acton Energy know our district very well. They were established here. We provide them with core funding. We fund them to deliver a range of cost of living related grants, and they not only provide telephone and internet support, but they have an officer employed by them who can help people go out to their house, help them fill in a form, help them gather documentary evidence, navigate them through this process. And I think, I'm assured that our relationship with Acton Energy is good and strong, and that's reflected in the fact that the Midland Net Zero Partnership, who are our kind of regional lead, appointed Acton Energy to deliver that for the whole of the region. So not only are Acton Energy delivering it for us, they're delivering it for the whole of the region, and we have an especially strong relationship with Acton Energy, so I would venture that we get a good service from them.
It's positive. I think the only thing I would add is that, again, we need to promote Acton Energy's services, because I didn't know some of the things you just told me, to be fair. That might be I might be in a minority there, but again, if we can get that message out, that would be positive. And my only final point is, well, the capital expenditure, we all know that capital expenditure can take a while to do, and I know you mentioned like the 12-month process as well. So whilst we've got, I think, was it almost 1.3 million, potentially 1.4 million, that looks really impressive. We might potentially only spend 3/4 of that, again, which is a fair amount, but I think we might need to manage expectations that whilst we've got quite a high amount, we might not necessarily spend it in the next 2 years. So I think we just need to monitor that on a regular basis.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to monitor it. I would say that because of our trajectory and the ever developing approach to this, I would be unhappy personally if we hadn't spent all of that allocation, because I think given our trajectory on this in this sort of field, we should be able to. We were disappointed with the allocations the indicative allocations we were given, because they were too low, not because they were too high, by the way.
And then that adds clarity to the fact that if you'd had a higher indicative amount, there'd have been less certainty that you'd been able to deliver that amount. But being as you've had a lower amount than anticipated, you have a high degree of confidence that you'll be able to deliver those without too much problems. I'm trying not to put too many words in your mouth there, Nick, and hold you to the account too much, but I think that explains that as well, so that's a fair point. Any other questions for the officer? No, brilliant, thank you. That was very helpful and very positive, and I think one message is that we do need to publicise this and again get the role of Acton Energy out in the public domain as much as we can. Thank you. Is going to be the infrastructure, the adoption of the IFS infrastructure funding statement for 23-24. Who wants to kick off on that? Councillor Coucher, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. This is a statement that we have to produce on an annual basis to meet statutory requirements, and we have to report by the 31st of December. And it is a considerable piece of work, and I do pay tribute to Sean Nicholson and the rest of the team who've actually put this report together, because there's a lot of detail in it, and a lot of schemes that have come forward. What I think is really interesting about the report is clearly we have £4.3 million in total to go towards capital schemes and infrastructure schemes within the district. When you look at the amount of development that we've had actually within the districts, even in that particular year, it's a relatively small sum. And obviously it's split between 106 agreements and SIL money. We have very little control over the spending of 106 agreement money, because most of that is then passed on to other agencies like County Council, like health boards and other bodies as well in relation to spending it. And I think one of the things that I have asked for the future is that we will be monitoring that spend, because frankly I think this report is only really half the picture. It demonstrates the amount of money that we're actually getting, but it doesn't actually demonstrate exactly how that's actually being spent or being planned to spend. And I think that's going to be very, very important for us going for the future. In relation to SIL, of course, obviously, part of that is passed on to parish councils, and we do get a return from parish councils every year about how they are spending their SIL money, and I think we'll want to look at that in greater detail in the future. But in relation to the SIL money that we have to allocate, we have had a moratorium this year while we reconsider our scheme for that, because in the past, the majority of our SIL money has gone for health spending, and Councillor Passingham is well aware of how Shipston supposedly benefited from that, but actually we don't seem to have a great deal of control over actually how the money is actually spent at the end of the day, and I think we need to monitor that greatly as well. So those are not actually in this report here today, because the report is really addressing what we have to do for statute, but I'm just giving you a flavour of where I think we're going to go for the future in making sure that future reports not only report just on money raised, but also how we're spending that money. Thanks, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Coucher. I've got Councillor Wally Hoggins to start off with, then Councillor Rove, Councillor Littleward, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Alcock so far.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Coucher. Very interesting. Of course, Ellen Badger is, of course, the main medical area for my ward as well, and I'm a signature to the Save the Ellen Badger Hospital bed campaign. Can you, it's more of a statement really, but I want to also ask for some elaboration as to where you think this might go, is that I am heartened to hear that there's potentially going to be some much more rigorous checking of where the SIL money is going and allocations, because Councillor Passingham and I both know that huge sums of money have been set aside for the Ellen Badger Hospital and a medical centre. We're all very well aware of the matters in the press regarding actual beds. Is a hospital with or without beds? And it's really, if we are sort of as a matter of urgency getting are we going to have the teeth and the guts to say, actually, that money was given or was allocated for X, you therefore can't do Y? Thank you.
I think I share your concerns. I think we're all concerned about that, because I think money was set aside for a particular purpose, and we're not certain that that purpose is necessarily being fulfilled. That is ongoing. I think at the moment we're not necessarily monitoring that in the way that we should be, but we will be in future. I think it's how we commission that SIL is a point in which you're already asking about, and we'll certainly look at that.
Do you think, therefore, that the Ellen Badger Hospital amounts of money, which is significant, could in fact be the test for how we proceed with this? Thank you.
I think that's highlighted our position. I'm not certain that we're going to have be able to recover that position from where we are at the moment, but we continue to engage with the procurers there and what is provided, and I think we all share the same concerns about hospital beds, which I believe we will be consulted upon in the new year.
I think I'll bring in Councillor Passingham and I'll let him jump the queue, because I think it is related to that last point. So it is that, I'm just preempting you. It is. Do you want to come in if it's related to that last point?
Yeah. Well, I've asked Howard and Andy if we can invite the Integrated Care Board to the February meeting, because there is a public consultation starting on the 12th of January about Ellen Badger Hospital and the disappointment that everybody feels in the area about the lack of beds, which was really part of the reason that all that money was allocated, because we thought there'd be a brand new facility with beds. So but that's one point. But another point, I noticed in here but I can't quite find it at the moment.
Do you want to come back on that one? I'll just let you come in on the other badge because that was associated, and then the others have indicated. And then I'll bring you back in after that, then, Councillor Pascom. Councillor Rolfe, please. I did get the look and noticed.
Yeah, the subject of Alan Badger, I have to declare an interest because I sit on Adult Health Overview and Scrutiny Board, and I'm the one that brought forward the meeting in January in the middle of the consultation period. So I have to declare a strong interest. I'm not sure it's something that should be discussed here at the moment. But I also agree that we should have ICB come here. I want to ask you two questions, if I may, Councillor Coucher. The first one is 106. There's always been a kind of bit of anomaly around 106 agreements, and it was a few years ago I discovered to my horror that if 106 wasn't spent, it went back to the developers, which is shocking. But what's more irritating, I suppose, is that we're not warned about that as councillors. And that's why I think there should be better checks and balances, and that we as councillors should be told, you know, Councillor Rolfe, this is not going to be spent, or it's likely to go back in the coffers. What should we do about it? And I think we need, as local ward members, to have some say around pushing for that spend in the right place. And I think also, for some councillors, it does actually come as a bit of a surprise that the money's gone and that scheme no longer exists. And you're asking those questions and you're thinking, I remember spending hours in committee talking about what is needed, and suddenly it's gone. So that's the first point. The second point is SIL. Now, I appreciate SIL. I appreciate that it's there, and that obviously I have to declare I'm a town councillor, and the town council have quite a substantial amount of money in SIL. I think what's interesting is that a lot of us don't know exactly what SIL money can be spent on. And I know that I've made a note that I think I should talk to our town clerk and make sure somebody comes with a nice long list of what it can be spent on and what it can't be spent on. And I think regularly we need to be updated as councillors as to what SIL money can or can't be spent on. I know certainly at the town council, our town clerk is constantly being asked to come to you, John or Joe, to say, is this eligible or is it not eligible? There needs to be a little bit more detail around what SIL money can or cannot be spent on. So they were my 2 points, really. Thank you.
Yeah, I think they are very sensible points. I think we've gone through those frustrations, both the money disappearing and the what can we spend the money on sort of thing. I know there have been training sessions in the past on SIL, etc., and whether it's an opportunity to either rerun them and include parish councils or potentially have an FAQ for parish and town councils regarding SIL, that just might be one of the options. But I certainly agree with the frustration and having worked to get those amounts, and then all of a sudden, without knowing, they've disappeared. So your pain is shared by many councillors there, Councillor Rolfe. Do you want to come back in on that, gentleman? Hopefully I've sort of like preempted some of the questions for you, but yeah, if you want to come back in, please.
Very quickly, I mean, I think it'd be very helpful to have the ICB here on relation to making sure that money is being spent. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing in terms of the planning reconstruction, making sure that we are monitoring and influencing implementation, and that includes 106 spend. And I think it's obviously of great concern to us when money isn't being spent, or indeed where it's being spent not necessarily in the place that we were. I always remember when I first was appointed as your portfolio holder, money that we thought was going to go for a first phase of a secondary school at Long Marston, associated with the plan there, had to be vied to spend on an extension at Stratford because we've just not built enough development at Long Marston. But that there are we need to be much more aware of that, I think, going forward. And I think the last point that you're making, Councillor Rolfe, in support for town and parish councils, I think that's what we're very keen to do as an administration with the parish forum. But I think in terms of continuously updating people on what still can be spent on, including members, would be very helpful.
Just a very quick follow-up. May, to Councillor Coucher, can I have assurances that we as members are warned well in advance on whether any monies are about to disappear from 106? Because I think that's really quite important. Thank you.
It's high on my agenda, and I'll certainly make sure members are aware.
Mr. Burks, you want to come in, please?
If I can just come in for clarity, I wouldn't like members to think that sort of large quantities of Section 106 money were disappearing on a regular basis. In my experience, I think there have been one or two very limited occasions where very specific Section 106 agreements relating to housing developments that couldn't come forward for planning reasons that were quite legitimate did have to be returned. But it's certainly not the case that we're playing fast and loose with this money and sort of not monitoring it as officers, and we would report it into you and using it as best we can. So whilst, yes, I'm very happy to inform members, I wouldn't like people around the table or anybody listening to this to get the impression that we were anything other than very, very prudent with our Section 106 money and using it as effectively as we can.
Sorry, I wasn't in any way indicating that. I was just saying that sometimes these things come up and, you know, out of the blue, and you think, how, you know, a resident will say, wasn't there meant to be a pathway down there? And you think, well, yes, and you suddenly find no longer. It's just a check and balance, really, for us. Thank you.
You could say the money's gone down another route on that pathway. Mr. Careford, do you want to add something into that, and add to the pun?
Thank you. Well, just to echo Mr. Burks there, and you know, it is monitored, but I think, as Councillor Coucher said, we need to be better at monitoring that and being more proactive. The benefit of the IFS is it does bring that together. We can always do more. Yeah, the monies are set out in the budget papers as well, but I think it's just that transparency point. Just to be clear, quite often 106 monies are acquired for a specific purpose. So if they're not being spent for that purpose, we can't always find an alternative route. And it was suggested that ward members are involved in discussions around that. I think that may not be the case. What we need to do is make sure that the service providers are spending the money on the projects they need to be spent it on. That's the key thing. And I think what's happened perhaps in recent years is if there hasn't been a spend, it's because of the cost increases of everything. So it's, you know, things have been costed when the application was granted, you know, 3-4 years ago, and now the costs are much higher than anticipated. So it's not just inflation. So I think that's an important thing to bear in mind. Just on SIL, as a district council, we are heavily restricted on what we can spend monies on, but parish and town councils, I think, have carte blanche, really. I'll caveat that slightly, to spend it on what they see fit. So if that is unclear with parishes, then okay, then we can work on that and tell parishes to spend the money, because the money's there, it needs to be spent. It's just, as Councillor Coucher said, encouraging the communities to spend the money they already have. Thank you.
I will bring Councillor Johnson in next. He has been waiting patiently, but I feel it's pertinent to add on to that bit about what is spent and how it's spent. Whether we can make any agreements as precise as possible within reason, and potentially reduce any ambiguity, particularly give people wriggle room, as in what is a hospital, etc. That would be welcome. Well, that's possible, and that would be positive as well, I think, from that. And I think it does add to the debate that we were talking about, how the money is spent. Councillor Johnston, please.
I think my first point's largely been made. It was around the monitoring and active monitoring of parish councils and their spend. The text seems fairly easy: support the development of the area. seemed kind of pretty open, really. The other thing I did want to say was that I'm also a member of the County Council's Adult Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee as a representative of this district. And I will be attending the meeting in January. If anyone wants me to ask some specific questions of the IHB, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. That's very helpful. Councillor Orcott, please.
Thank you. It is actually quite interesting to hear the different views on, especially ring fence, Section 106 monies, and also SIL in a way. It does feel sometimes, especially as a town councillor, that you can spend this money if you request it on the 30th of February wearing a pink dress on a Wednesday. It's the sort of hoops we feel sometimes we have to jump through, and I cannot count how many times, and Councillor Rolfe will agree with this, we have said in a town council meeting, that's such a great initiative for the town, we can use SIL money, to say, oh no we can't. And that can make it quite difficult. It's why I think clarity on this situation is vital right now, because I can think of many different initiatives I'd like to spend SIL money we have. And it's a similar way to Section 106 money as well. I know that one that I was involved in, it hadn't been spent. It was coming up to the timeline, but it was almost like it was put into such a tiny box. This money can only be spent on art that benefited community, that then also involved children. And it was trying to tick every single box. Now, we managed it, and Bishopton School have an absolutely amazing mural that the children helped in, but that was because we could get the school involved very, very quickly. And I'm just looking if there's a way to prevent developers locking this money up so tight that it's actually very difficult for us as ward members to access it for the benefit of our wards. And that is something I'd very much like us to look into. And also, I think it's actually quite important if we have almost like a mini audit on Section 106 and SIL monies over the past 5 years, say, what has been spent where, and what wasn't, and for what reason it wasn't. Is it because it was so tied up in what the developers wanted it spent on, rather than what we know our residents needed?
Mr. Kerford, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, on the point of SIL, clearly there does appear to be some lack of clarity with certain councils about how to spend it. We'll address that to make sure we remove that uncertainty. I think just to be clear with Section 106s, so these are legal obligations. They have to be necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. They have to be directly related to the development, and then fairly reasonable related in scale and kind. That's if you like, the law. These, Section 106 is different from SIL in that sense. So Section 106s are quite tightly defined because the planning application process has determined that piece of infrastructure is required to make the development acceptable. So I think just to make that absolutely clear that there may be, we've got to be careful we're not trying to use the money for other things. The 106 monies are there for a particular specific reason, and our duty is to make sure that that reason is delivered. And I think, as I said earlier, with the cost escalations, it's proving trickier to do that. But I think in the context of we don't return a lot of the money, but we do need to make sure that our partner organisations are delivering the infrastructure that they've said they're needed to make the development acceptable. If they've changed their mind and say, well, actually we no longer need this, then that's a different issue. But at the point the application was approved, they've said we need X, Y, and Z, hence the existence of the obligation. And just to be clear, most of the ones we deal with directly primarily relate to open space or affordable housing, or CCTV, probably the other main one. Thank you.
Joe, do you want to come in, please?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that in relation to the transparency issue in relation to SIL, Appendix B of the IFS does set out all of the SIL allocations that the District Council has made and what the current status of those are, and those obviously will be reported annually. So there's an up-to-date position on the SIL allocations.
Councillor Littlewood and then Councillor Pascal.
Thank you. With your agreement, Chair, I'd just like to go back on the comment that Councillor Coucher raised earlier on with regards to the Ellen Badger. You were talking about beds in the hospital, I think, Councillor, but there is a separate fund which is for the GP surgery. Now, I may be out of date and incorrect, but my belief and understanding is that the GP surgery is not going to go ahead. Now, the point you made was, at this point, it may be difficult to stop or recover those funds, but surely if the GP surgery does not go ahead, that is recoverable, or am I wrong?
I think we have already prompted officers in relation to this, and I know there's a continuing dialogue, and if we feel that the money is not being used in accordance with what it was intended to for SIL, then clearly we do have a clawback. I know that everybody is quite alert to this.
Thank you for that clarification, much appreciated.
Thank you. I'm sure that'll be monitored on a longer basis, and obviously it's quite a pertinent subject at the moment. I've got Councillor Passingham next, and Councillor Passingham, please.
Well, it was related to that point. It does say here that an extension has been agreed with the ICB, or no, SWIFT, for this SIL money, the £500,000, until next year. So, as Councillor Littlewood says, the understanding is that the GPs don't want to move into this brand new building, despite the fact they've got over £500,000 to encourage them to do it. They don't want to do it, presumably because it wasn't an integrated health facility with beds, or maybe other reasons. But there is an extension in place at the moment, so negotiations are still going on. Is that right?
I think that I'll bring Mr. Perks, and I think we need to perhaps bring another report back in.
Yeah,
and I think it's probably unfair on officers at the moment asking, and I can understand why the questions have been asked, and that's perfectly fine. But I think in terms of fairness, we can speak to the officers to come back with a report on this, and rather than put them on the spot, and that way they'll be able to give comprehensive answers to the questions. So I hope you don't mind me interrupting. Mr. Perks, any comments on that?
No, that's right. I would like, if we are to debate, I'm very happy to debate the Ellen Badger, but I think we'd like to sort of prepare to make sure we've got sort of the facts straight rather than sort of working on sort of rumours and parts of things. So if the committee would like us to do a report on the Ellen Badger, we will do that. But if we could focus on the IFS, which is the purpose of this report, I'd appreciate it.
Brilliant. Any other questions on Councillor Whalley-Hoggins, please?
Yes, just, it's been mentioned briefly here. I want you to give me some indication of how much money has been clawed back by developers because money being failed to be spent has been allocated to town councils and parish councils, please. I'm also would like to be in agreement with Councillor Alcock, really, that some of the parameters, I know, some of the parameters that are given for the spending of some of this money is quite tricky, and you almost begin to wonder, is it, you know, if it's that tricky, are the developers just banking on it not being spent so they do get it back? Thanks very much indeed.
Do you think that would be possible to report back after the meeting or outside? And again, the only thing to add to that was the reasons why it was clawed back, if so. And I don't want to go too far back, perhaps 3 or 4 years. It's for, yeah, up to 10 years, there's a reasonable amount on that. Councillor Coacher, please.
I just want to make sure that's reasonable. Our difficulty is this council did not monitor that necessarily in the past. So actually getting all that records means quite a lot of officer time going into it. And I'm fully aware at the moment of the pressure which the department is under, particularly in relation to the local plan. But we'll look to see what we can achieve. But it's not easy. What I do want to say to this committee is going forward, we will be monitoring this much more closely and we won't be making those mistakes from the past again.
Thank you. I think we've got to have something that's fair and reasonable, and obviously if you're doing that, officers' time is limited and you can't be doing one thing, doing that and then putting improvements in so it doesn't happen again. So I think if we can come up with sort of a balance that's fair and reasonable, that would be appreciated.
Can I just understand what you are asking for? You're asking for a schedule of Section 106 payments that have been returned to developers in the last 10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Been an allegation made that the previous administration did not keep on top of the facts regarding that. So therefore, yes, we absolutely do need to know those facts and figures. Thank you.
Right. Are we happy with that? I think we've slightly meandered, and I've tried to get us back on course and with some reasonable suggestions and some reasonable actions for the portfolio holder and Mr. Kevard's team. But I do think, yeah, that's been very helpful, and thank you for that. The next item we are going to be looking at now is the performance monitoring report for Q2. And Simon, now we've sorted out the technical issues, we'll just be given a brief introduction. Simon, can you hear us? Can you fire away now?
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me. This report presents the performance achieved during Q2, monitoring delivery of the council plan actions and the key performance indicators. As you'll see in the report, there are 66 actions included in the plan for year 1, of which 30 are due to be reported this quarter. 24 have been achieved, which is 80%. 1 is ongoing with no set target, and 5 actions were not achieved. In respect to the key performance indicators, we have 23 that monitor performance in year 1, of which 15 are on target, 6 are not on target, and 2 indicators have not been reported, major planning applications on appeal and non-major planning applications on appeal. And basically now it's open to the floor for any comments, please. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. I can see everybody's beavering away looking at the report that's in the Cabinet papers on pages 49 to 84. Councillor Johnson, well done. You can come in first, please.
It's a general question. This report, as I understand it, goes up to September 2024. If something has been achieved after September, up to date as it were in December, that will count as not achieved, though it may well already have been achieved. Is that broadly right? I understand we have come to an arrangement on page 4 of the plans with the County Council to procure a community transport service. So it's to say it's not achieved today, it has in fact been achieved.
It's not been achieved in the period that we are monitoring, but yes. No, post period, it has been achieved. Simon?
Yeah, yes, yes, Chair, yes, that's correct. Yes, it is up to September the 30th, so thank you.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Whilst we're waiting, I've got a question, and it relates to the payment of our creditors within a certain amount of time. Page 79 of the Cabinet report, percentage of creditors paid within 28 days, excluding creditors of their own bespoke terms. I think this was brought in many years ago to ensure that councils paid suppliers, particularly local suppliers, within a certain amount of time within credit terms. There's a couple of things. Is there still a penalty if we don't pay those? Because I know at one stage, if we didn't pay within credit terms, the the supplier could ask for some interest on that payment. And secondly, there's a bit of clarity regarding the reason why it was off target. System issues continued into Q2, some of them more problematic. And then it says we are continuing to train up new officers in the key areas. So is this a problem with the system, or is this a problem with people using the system, or is this a problem we haven't got enough people available to sort out the system problem? So it just seemed a bit slightly ambiguous on that one.
I think I'll have to ask Mr. Burrell to give you a detailed answer on that, because it's his area and he's not with us today, unfortunately. But I will get Howard, if you take a note, I'll get a note sent round to people on that one.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to be pedantic, but it did seem to be about 2 or 3 different areas. Any other questions on the Q2 report? We managed to get Simon working. I think we need to get him. He's flown in from Hawaii to be here.
Interesting.
And we're not making the most of officer time. Councillor Alcott, well done. You saved me here. Thank you.
As always. It's what I do best, is saving you. I apologise, Chair. That wasn't very nice of me.
No, don't worry. I took it in the spirit it was meant, not what you actually said. So.
It's the number of Home Choice Plus applications. I'm on page 77. Target's 14 days. Currently, we're looking at 22 days. It might not seem big difference, but for the people who are desperately trying to get onto the list to see if they can get a social housing property, for whatever reason it might be, actually those days can be the most stressful for residents, and it's a worry. What if they say no? What if I haven't got enough? Am I going to end up homeless in those days waiting? I know it's going to be reviewed again, but is there a reason at all that that number is off by 8 days, 6 days, sorry. No, 8 days, sorry, my maths is appalling at the moment. No, those 8 days. And does that count weekends, or is that Monday to Friday days as well? Because if not, then that's almost 2 whole weeks that people could be waiting.
Nick, you sneaked in. Good man. We're getting the most value for money from you today as well, so thank you.
Happy to come in on that. I think it is all days rather than just Monday to Friday. So it's an entire week. My personal view, although I accept others may differ on this, is that 22 days is actually quite quick. Looking at other places that I'm aware of. That's not to say that we shouldn't be targeting the 14. It's just to provide a bit of context. And what I would reassure you around is that if somebody presents to us as homeless, most acutely impacted upon by their housing, then that will be dealt with very swiftly and not within a 22-day or a 14-day window. People can come to our reception, they can talk to us on the day. So those households that are, most challenged by their housing circumstances get dealt with immediately.
So just to complete sort of Nick's answer, and we have identified this for some time as a problem. It is an improving picture. It's better than it was, and we're continuing to invest in that to make it better. But yes, we are still seeking to meet that target. But be assured, sort of genuine emergency homeless cases aren't held up in this backlog.
All right. Any other questions? It's good to see Mr. Kevin's here. All these targets seem to be well exceeded, so thank you staff there. And I did see the land charges time, again, that's doing positively. obviously we've got Mr Nash at the background. It must have been his time setting the things in practice, so that it's all working smoothly now. So well done, Mr Nash, and I'll have the £5 later for mentioning that. Thank you. So, yeah, very good. So I think that's really positive. No other questions on this. But, yeah, it is noticing. We'll keep an eye on these, and it is really positive that things are working to plan. But it's the whole point of coming to scrutiny. We do have to look at these points. All right, next item on the agenda. That's the trouble, too many pieces of paper. We'll be looking at the joint cabinet meeting on the 12th of December. You may have all received about 17 trees worth of paper through the post this week. That I think I got mine Wednesday due to the vagaries of the postal system. So I just wondered, John, Councillor Coucher, you want to give us a brief overview, and then we'll come in. I know that there has been a press release that came out last week as well, and I've got that here, and I think that's quite helpful as well. But if you want to kick off, please, Councillor Coucher.
This has been. We are obviously on a journey in preparing our local plan. A journey that started a few years ago and won't be concluded until 2027. There has been an enormous amount of work done to get us this far, and I would want to pay tribute to all of the local plan team, both past and present, who worked on this, and also our colleagues on the advisory committee that have worked, I think, very, very diligently and rather regularly, particularly in recent months. So to get us this far has been an achievement. What we are deciding to do, hopefully in conjunction with our colleagues from Warwick, is to go out and consult on what is described as preferred options. I think I would describe them as preferable options, because there are more options in here than actually we require, and indeed that is basically to ensure that we have evaluated all opportunities, so that we are not left high and dry when it comes to an inquiry. But at this stage, nothing is perfect, nothing is a tablet of stone. And clearly we will be wanting to get as much feedback as we possibly can from colleagues and from our partner councils and from members of the public, and indeed for the development industry as well, so that we can refine matters into a local plan for the district, or for the two districts. We've had to accommodate during this, obviously, new planning policy guidance, which is not confirmed by this government, but we are taking into account that we are in a moving situation where we are aware that new requirements are being put on us. The only thing that I would very strongly urge you is not to delay a decision on the 12th of December and going out to consult in January on the plan, because we are on a tight time scale and we need to make certain progress to ensure that our plan remains relevant, and that we're not actually caught by any new requirements that may come up from this government as a result of new guidance. So time scale is important for us. Thank you.
Mr. Kirkford, please.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, just to follow up from Councillor Coucher, firstly, my thanks to Joe, Stephen, and the team for a huge piece of work. I'll let them, if they feel it's necessary, to just run through any detail that they want to pick out in the report. But I think it's useful just to provide a little bit of context about what this is and why we're doing it. I suppose the glass half empty perspective is that the development's going to happen regardless. So it's better having a plan to remain in control about where that goes. The glass half full perspective is that actually the plan is a really powerful tool of delivering this council's your objectives, whether it's on climate change, of design, of connectivity, or whatever. So this is about using development to achieve those objectives and those aims and capturing the benefits from development. There are some challenging decisions to be made in this. There is a lot of development that's proposed, as Councillor Couch has rightly said. At this stage, we've got more in here than we need, so it is still one of refinement. But just bear in mind when you're talking to communities, it's about having a plan that delivers for those communities, because otherwise, the development will still happen, but we just won't get those added benefits. So I think that's the really important context just to bear in mind. And to say it's not the final plan. There's, I think we're stage 3 of 8, are we? Obviously, we speed up as we go through, but it is one of refinement, and there's at least one further round of consultation still to come. So, I think it's just want to make that contextual point. Thank you.
Councillor Wally-Hoggins, please.
Yeah, apologies. I'm actually going to have to leave the meeting before this concludes, but could I just... I'm actually going to agree with you, Councillor Coucher, that this just probably does need to be... we don't need to delay this. However, what I would ask, Chair, is this is a huge document here. Spending 10 minutes now at the end of this meeting talking about this, actually, I don't think it's... I don't think it gives this document the gravitas that it deserves, and I don't think it gives us the time to speak to officers about it. I think we need to come up with a solution today where we can look at this carefully, discuss it, and I would suggest that this probably, forgive me everybody, but this needs to be an extraordinary meeting of OSC. I'm not saying before Christmas, but I'm saying that this needs to be looked at. The meeting on the 12th of December, I think when it's the joint meeting, there's lots of people going to be there looking at that. But I think we can't be an overview and scrutiny committee if we don't look at the findings of the consultation and this document properly and with the gravitas that it deserves, because it has such a profound effect on all of our residents. So that's my compromise, Councillor Alcock, that perhaps not before Christmas, but we haven't got time to look at this now this could go on till 4 o'clock this afternoon. But do you need me to propose something better than that? But you can come up with the words and I'll just agree with it. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiments. And a couple of minutes before, I just did say to Mr. Perks that because the amount of paperwork there was and the short time we've got, I was going to ask members, all things being well, I will be there on the 12th of December for the joint cabinet meeting. So if between now and then, members had got some points they wanted me to raise as part of that process, I would be more than willing and happy to raise those points at the meeting, which is sort of like a compromise. But I totally agree that will need a special meeting, a one-item agenda on this because of the amount of work there is. So, Councillor Littlewood, then, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I endorse what you say and what Councillor Wally-Hoggins said, and this is not to criticise in any way the process. This is a huge document. It's a huge plan. It's a plan for a generation, in fact. And we need, therefore, to take it very, very seriously indeed. And what I'd like to propose is, in addition to what you've suggested, Chair, that this becomes a regular item on the overview and scrutiny so we can keep in touch with developments and processes and changes.
Again, I think that's not unreasonable. Whether at times it's more of a lighter touch rather than a presentation each time. And I think we will have to do some work on that.
Didn't intend those comments to mean that we were delaying it in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just think, we've had the problem about ambiguity and clarity regarding spending SIL money in Section 106. I just want to make sure we are clear and as unambiguous as possible on this. So, Councillor Rolfe, please.
I agree there should be a meeting on this item, but shouldn't it be all the council rather than just Overview and Scrutiny? I mean, shouldn't we all, we're all representing our, I mean, I'm just saying.
Yes, but we're the representatives of our respective groups, aren't we?
Okay.
And so we have to provide them with a feed-in for this, because the point is that this becomes really unruly and unimaginable, that individual councillors will get the opportunity to feed in as part of the consultation process. So therefore, OSC then sort of umbrellas over that, really. I mean, I can already think of something in here that I'd like to see more detail on, to do with trees, but I do think we need to give this the gravitas that it deserves and needs. So thank you. I've got to go in a moment.
Yeah, I think this is, through you, Chair, this is a step on a journey. The Joint Committee will be asked whether they would like to release this document as the preferred options for a consultation process as part of forming the local plan. What they will customarily ask for is the views of the Overview and Scrutiny Committees of both councils to inform their decision about whether to release this for consultation. It isn't sort of accepting things, and as part of that there will be debates with both of the councils as the consultation goes forward. But it would be useful to have a formed view from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee prior to the meeting of the Joint Committee on the 12th of December. So if you wanted to sort of have an extra meeting to do that, we'd need to do it in that time window, which we can if that's the will of the committee.
Yep.
So what about the meeting before the 12th or after the 12th?
No, before the 12th. So looking at the sort of diaries, if you don't want it before Christmas, you haven't got terribly many days. It really needs to be the 3rd of December, the 3rd of January, sorry, which is the Friday following the New Year return, because that will give us a chance to sort of reflect your feedback to them. Because I think that the following Thursday is the meeting of the Joint Committee, and you need to inform the agreement.
Before the 12th of December, is that what
Yes.
you said? Therefore, I propose that, in accordance with the Deputy Chief Executive's wishes, that we suggestion that we find a mutually convenient date when the majority of members of this committee can meet, and when it's mutually agreeable to committee services and doesn't impact on their working hours. I suggest that is my proposal. I think we're going to have to ask for a certain amount of fluidity over this, and compromises will have to be made regarding this date. Thank you.
Councillor Rolfe, please.
I'm looking at the 9th of December, which is full council. Would it be possible for those on Overview and Scrutiny to meet after full council for an hour? I mean, it's just that we're mostly all in. I don't know. I'm just suggesting that. Or before.
Before would probably
or
be
before. But I've got meetings before, but I can make an hour before. It's entirely up to the Deputy Chief Executive, I mean.
I think whether you can come is probably quite important. It's not quite my decision, but yeah. Well, what would people prefer? We were saying we didn't want a meeting before Christmas a moment ago. Are we happy to look at opportunities in that area?
Why do we need to move before Christmas? Sorry, why are we meeting before Christmas? I know we've got the joint plan, the meeting on the 12th. That is a given, and I just wanted to. That will go ahead whether or not we decide to have a meeting before or afterwards, won't it? So, you know, but I want us to be the most impactful that we can be.
I think so. The role of this committee is to scrutinise the work of the Joint Cabinet Committee. To do that, we need your views to feed into the decision that the Joint Cabinet Committee then make. Hence why we need a steer from OSC, if you wish to give one, prior to the 12th. So if you want to go down that route, meeting before the 12th is what we need. If, however, you're saying actually you don't want to give the Joint Cabinet Committee a steer, then the meeting can be whenever, and we can just take a view. But if you want it to be impactful and to actually influence or potentially influence the decision of the committee and or the content of this, it needs to be before the 12th of December.
I don't think that we're limited then to either one before or one after. I suspect, ladies and gentlemen, that we are going to be needing a meeting before and after, I'm afraid, because such is the need for this. So I'm minded that we have it on the 9th in the morning, start at 9 o'clock, people join when they can, but I you know, it's going to have to be a majority of people that can come or whenever, but I'm happy to there are dates that I'm absolutely not going to be able to make, but the majority will have to be here. Thanks.
I would suggest that the 9th sounds a reasonable compromise, but I know it's going to be difficult for people. I propose that the morning would make sense, especially if the full council goes on for a long while and we're sat 2 or 3 hours and then we have another couple of hours afterwards. I think that might be difficult and challenging for people. Whether 9 o'clock is, I think that could be difficult. Whether we perhaps 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then, yeah. But we'll, if we can get agreement in principle for a meeting on the morning on the 9th of December, and we'll try and get a time that's most advantageous to most people, and whether we have to have some slight overlap with people coming in and then a bit of an update, I would be happy with that, but I'm going to be guided by members here. Councillor Keithley, please.
Okay, thanks. Earlier this week, a number of us attended some training that was run by Steve and Joe, actually, to take us through this, because there's an awful lot of information. It helped familiarise us. I don't know how many members of OSC attended that. Some of us did. So some of us have already had an insight. I'm a bit concerned, Chair, that without some support to look at the detail, that bringing members of OSC back to another meeting without really understanding what it is you might wish to challenge or what recommendations you might wish to make to the joint committee is frankly a waste of time, because the majority of people won't be able to take it all in, and that's why we've got a consultation process in the new year. What I would suggest, unless, I don't know if it's available, a recording of that training that you did, Joe, that could be circulated in advance. But my fear is we are in danger of a knee-jerk reaction to trying to fathom out what it is we might like or dislike about this document, when we've had numerous people, officers and experts, providing an input into it for goodness knows how long, and they've come up with, I think, a very, very good job. I'll defer to Councillor Coucher to explain the work that's gone into this document that we've got here. I'd be concerned about a knee-jerk reaction to trying to bring a meeting of this committee together in a very short space of time to do what exactly? That'd be the question I'd be asking, because I don't think on the 9th of December we'd be in a better place to discuss it.
There's a couple of things on that. I will bring Mr. Perks in. What I'm concerned about is currently, rightly or wrongly, we've had this on the agenda now, and it's a big agenda, and we've only had the papers in a short amount of time, and a massive amount of papers. What a scrutiny, we need to make sure, reassure ourselves that we are doing a proper job with scrutiny, and if that means officers guiding us on what we should be looking at in this process, in the papers, and then we have a debate and then say, oh yes, our concerns have been met, we've got no real issues, but at least we will then know that we've done the proper job. Because currently, I'm not sure we know what we should be scrutinizing properly on this. And that's my fallback. I'd rather we have too much information and then think, well, yes, we didn't need to have that meeting, rather than we didn't have the meeting and what if. So I'll just bring Mr. Perks in on.
Yeah, I would be very happy if you could decide on a date that we could make officers available to take you through the outline of the documents here. That it is a weighty term, and I know Joe's got a good presentation that takes you through it. We could do a sort of version of the training to allow you to have informed discussion. I think Councillor Couch wants to.
Councillor, please, yeah.
Can I say, I think Councillor Keithley has encapsulated my view in many respects about what do you want to achieve. Basically, this document is very weighty, and this is what is going to be consulted upon, and therefore details about individual schemes or individual towns or individual... that's not a matter for discussion now, that's a matter for discussion in due course. If you note the recommendation that is going to go forward on the 12th, it's basically to note these documents. It's not to necessarily approve them or approve the content within inside. It's basically a recommendation to say that we're meeting the statutory process, that we have to in terms of making sure that we have a local plan, and this is what we are going out to consult with. I think, frankly, Chair, your offer of collecting views from your group and articulating those on the 12th will be very helpful. I will certainly be doing it for the Liberal Democrat group to make sure that we have some issues with regard to the vision statement, which we think needs amendment before it goes out for consultation. I think, frankly, there are ways in which we can do that without actually having to sit round here on yet another meeting. Frankly, I can't do before before full council, because I've got a very important meeting with the RSC then. Which is going to be very important for this town, and frankly, I think that's very important. So I think that's what I would say to you is I think there are mechanisms in which where we can do that without necessarily having to have another meeting. I don't want to be accused of railroading this through, because we certainly don't want to do that, and I think there is every opportunity for people to comment. I don't think, as I've said already this morning, this is not a tablet of stone that we are approving here today. It's a point on the direction of travel. And what we do need to do is we do need to start that consultation process in January.
Right. Councillor Alcock indicated first, and then Councillor Rolfe. Oh, we've got all sorts. Councillor Littlewood then. Oh.
In terms of the timing, I recognise the decision being taken on the 12th of October is simply to go out for consultation, and I think we need in our agenda in the new year is some opportunity to consume all 600 and whatever pages of it and to make our own comments then. There is an item of detail in the vision statement which I would hope could be taken on board before the joint cabinet meeting. It's on page 52 in the thick pack. I'd like more emphasis on the vision, noting the need to meet local needs, local community needs. It just says more clarity around the current housing and employment needs. I think that needs to be given more emphasis in terms of our local needs, and I hope that can be accommodated by a drafting amendment. And it certainly isn't a suggestion we should defer the decision making in that.
Yeah. Just to make clear, my offer was to the views of OSC. It wouldn't be from the group. The groups can do that themselves. My offer as attending the meeting as chair of Over and Scrutiny would be the views of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So I think that's fair. We've spoken about the process and the direction of travel. And I think probably what I would like reassurance is how we've gone down that process, what's driven the information, what's driven the sites that have come forward. I think, was it the 24 and the 12, isn't it? The 24 potential new settlements and the 24 strategic growth locations. At the Southam Town Council, it was briefly talked about last night. And obviously we are working with the Warwick District. We've got, I believe, just under 24-year housing land supply. I don't believe that Warwick District have got a 5-year housing land supply. So, you know, we are, you know, for some reason, you know, I think what I would like to know, and it might be totally irrelevant to this bit, but it is Safe Oxfordshire Local Plan because we are working with them, do things, what's caused that, how robust is the evidence or what we've got come forward in the light of the fact that past performance meant that some sites were discounted, meaning that Warwick District hadn't got a 5-year housing land supply, meaning that developers, if they'd got a sustainable scheme, there was the presumption of favour of approval. So that would be just, I think, from a scrutiny point of view, well, just how confident are we, sort of thing. So, but I'm getting the flavour that, I'll bring you in a minute, Kathy, that there doesn't seem to be a flavour for an appetite for an additional meeting on the 9th. So I think if we, do we want to put something in a formal one? We did have a proposal from Councillor Warren Huggins, who's not here, and I don't know, can't remember what it was seconded. But I want to be guided by the committee our next course of action, and I'm getting the impression that the next course of action is that we don't have an additional meeting, but I'm sorry, Malcolm, I will bring you in a second. I've started, so I'll finish. I will pass on the scrutiny committee's points at the meeting on the 12th of December. Is that a fair point? Come, Mr. Pearce, come on.
All I was going to say is somehow or other we need to sort of work out what the views of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on this report are if you want to make any representations. So we either need to do that by an informal process, by a formal process, or decide not to do it. So if that gives some clarity, but that needs to be done in time for the meeting on the 12th.
Little and then Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, what I was trying to do was to say that, going back to Councillor Keeley's remarks, there were a group from all sides that attended the meeting and briefing on South Warwickshire Local Plan earlier this week. It is complicated. A lot of issues were asked, even to scrutinising the vision statements. But what I would draw all members' attention to, and this may solve the problem that we're talking about, is that on the 10th, the evening of the 10th, there is another briefing by Teams. And I suggest that any members who wish to be involved and educate themselves should attend that, and at that point then we'll be in a better place to make comments constructively or otherwise, but that would then not that would negate the need at that point to have a previous to the 12th meeting. Bad word, English there, but I think we can do that. Having said that, I still believe that as an overview and scrutiny, we need to keep a watching brief on this, and I would like to see it being a regular item on the agenda, even if we just note. Thank you.
Before I bring Councillor Rolfe in, Howard's reminded me that we're coming up to the 3 hours, so I'm asking approval that we carry on for a little bit longer, because we've nearly completed this. And then we've got the task and finish group and the brief on the work plan. So I'm proposing that we carry on past the 3 hours. Thank you. Yeah, I know, I've got Councillor Rolfe and Councillor Alcott.
Okay, just two things. I was going to mention the training. I've checked with Howard and I believe that I can't go to that one either, but I believe it will be recorded on the 10th. So everyone will get the opportunity to see it. I do think we ought to make, if Councillor Crump is going to take forward our views, Councillor Johnston's already come up with a view which we need to either agree with. I do think the wording needs changing. I absolutely agree with what he says. It needs changing to meet local needs. Can that be brought forward by this committee via Councillor Crump to the Joint Cabinet? Because that is a very important issue, in my opinion. Thank you.
That sounds reasonable. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, but do we have to agree as a committee? Are we going to debate it, or do we all agree that that is the case and Councillor Crump is going to take it forward?
Yeah, if no one disagrees, it's people. Right, Councillor Alcock and then Councillor Keithley. You haven't deliberately gotten used to it, promise.
But you did forget me. But I will...
Forgettable.
Yeah. Yeah, the additional training on December the 10th. Yes, December the 10th will be vital. I don't see the reason to have a meeting before that, because not everyone could attend the first lot of training, so the second lot is also going to be vital. However, that also clashes with Town Council planning meeting. I will figure out a way to be in two places at the same time. I'm sure it's possible somehow. We have until the, if I'm correct, we have until the 12th to put our comments forward before it goes to that committee. It doesn't leave a lot of time between the next planning session, next training session to that meeting. However, I do think it is possible that we can get our views in. Can I suggest that we agree with the views put forward by Councillor Johnson and we look at the training and we bring our views forward via email in the meantime before December the 12th? Because there's not much more we can do. There was, as you say, there are hundreds of pages there, and we've had it for 2 days.
Yeah, no.
It's just not physically been possible for people to scrutinise it.
Yeah. So yeah, a couple of things on that. It might be a way for you to be in two places at once. The meeting on the 10th, the training is going to be recorded, so you could perhaps watch it at a later date. So you know, one solution. And comments on after the training for the meeting on the 12th, if you could email them to me and Howard, that would be positive and helpful. Councillor Keithley, I've left you hanging for a while, but come on in, please.
I thought you might be taking it in alphabetical order or something, Chair. But I've always been in the middle. Just reflecting back to you what you said, you wanted a meeting, or you wanted the opportunity to have comfort in the process so far in reaching this point, and you raised an issue of Warwick and Stratford and the differences in housing supply, for example. Some of those issues in terms of the evidence and the way in which we got to this point were covered when we had the training. So with respect, if you have the opportunity to dial into Teams, you'll get probably the comfort that you require moving forward. And certainly, if it's not already picked up, I'm sure it will be on that now as a result of Stephen sitting here. I just wanted to ask a quick question because it's for us to make sure that other councils, town and parish councils and other organisations that are going to take part in this consultation have early sight of this, because it is complex, Stephen. Are we saying it was an 8-week consultation? Did I get that right? And can you tell us when it's likely to come out so that we can start to get people lined up to look at this in advance? Although it's been hit the Herald, hasn't it, this week, so people know that it's coming.
Yeah, so the answer is that yes, it is an 8-week consultation. It begins on the 10th of January.
Right.
That's the plan, and that's the reference into the report. Should finish on the 7th of March. We will also, subject to joint committee approval, be looking to do briefing sessions for parish and town councils prior to the actual launch, where we won't be asking for comments at that stage, but they'll be able to have similar briefings that they have a better understanding of it as well too. and that's likely to be in the third week of December. That allows for that to progress as well. So they'll be at that they'll have that opportunity, and then there'll be the actual consultation taking place with the different media forms that will do that as well for them to observe and to be involved and ask questions.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chair, for that clarification. I think having attended the training this week, I had some degree of comfort that the team have thought well in advance about the way in which we're going to consult and make sure that people have every opportunity.
Yeah, no, Brent, I was on the course on to do with overview and scrutiny and audit that Councillor Alcock is going to be on, so I was on that all day, so I couldn't be in two places at once, unfortunately, but I will be there on the 10th. Mr Careford, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Keithy, for the question. Just to add to what Stephen said, obviously the paper's already in the public domain, and I think, in addition to the fact we're doing 8 weeks, the message I want to give to the community and residents is that start viewing the papers from the sort of 12th of December, so you really can start digesting them, and that you've got a good 3 months, I suppose, really to be able to take on board what we're trying to do with this and what it's saying. Just observation. Obviously, the papers of this committee were published. What was it, 5 working days in advance? I know that that's just electronically, and then members quite prefer a paper version. But obviously, the papers have gone out properly for this committee. So I just want to put that point on record. Thank you.
We won't sound that, John. I do apologise if that came out as that. So I got an alarm set in. Do apologise. It wasn't any criticism. It's just the fact that the papers, there's a lot to digest, and sometimes it's a lot to read online as well. So, and again, wasn't any criticism intended at all. Regarding looking at it after the 12th, I'm sure people might be 13 days later look at it if they've got nothing else better to do on that day. But yeah, I think that if we can get the press releases kicked out, early in the new year, because I think people will, I don't think many people will be looking at it in the last 2 weeks of December. But, from the first week in January, if we can then get the messages, by the way, this has happened. We've done this press release on the 22nd of November, which, South Warwickshire Local Plan Preferred Option Consultation. This is a follow-up on that, and then get people to say that they've got the 8 weeks to look at. Joe, come in on, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to add that we are preparing a press release to go out on the 13th of December after the Joint Committee on the 12th, and then we'll be doing another one in early January just to remind people that the consultation has started. And obviously, as Stephen said, lots of different consultation approaches that we're taking. So there will be another one coming out after the Joint Committee as well.
We've done this to death now. The actions are that members who, if they haven't been to the training session this week, attend the one on the 10th of December. It's a Teams one, and it's going to be recorded. I will then, at the meeting on the 12th, pass on any views from members of the Scrutiny Committee after the training, and that needs to be sent to both me and Howard. And then after the 12th, there will be a plan put in place early in the new year with a press release and the fact that we'll be going live on the 10th of January for 8 weeks for people to get back to, and there will be some form of engagement with towns and parishes. Councillor Rolfe.
And just to add to that, that you will mention that you would like to see some wording about local needs.
Definitely.
Please.
Howard's
you didn't mention it, but
Howard's going to remind me. I'm glad. I was just making sure people were listening. And
I listened.
Councillor Rolfe, you've passed the test, and that will be in as well. So well done. Thank you. Yeah. Right. Thank you very much. Item number 9, the task and finish group. Well, I've gone off there. We're looking for membership of the group. I would like to be on this one. Sorry about that. I would like to be on this one. We are looking for volunteers. Councillor Pascom. Yeah, I'd like to volunteer. Councillor Johnson?
We have 3 volunteers. Myself, Councillor Fradgley and Councillor Alcock. Councillor Ian Fradgley, obviously.
And Councillor Littlewood?
I'm not sure how many members you require, but I'd like to volunteer and work on the cash management working group as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people in the group. So we've got David Johnston, we've got Ian Fradgley. 5
We had 5 last year.
And yourself, Andy.
And Malcolm.
Who's that? Howard. We've got 6 there.
6.
Yeah, I'm just checking if we put a limit on this. Because we did have 5 last year, but 6 should be fine. I thought 6 should be okay. Yeah, it's not looking sort of. Yeah, we haven't got an official limit on it, so 6 should be fine. Do you have
Yeah,
6,
I think we've got 6 then, which is Councillor Passingham, Councillor Johnston, Councillor Fradgley, Councillor Alcott, me and Councillor Littlewood. Are we?
Political balances last year.
And I think it's going to be the same political balance as last year as well.
Could we ask Mr. Allison to perhaps organise dates and times and mode of operation? Because I think some of this could be done on Teams.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We'll leave that in the capable hands of Mr. Allison. He's done task and finished groups and herded cats and got lots of positive response. Okay, Councillor Alcott, you happy with that? Right, so the last item is the last but one, because we've got any other business, urgent business. The work plan. Consider the work plan on page 31 to 36. We've had a request from Councillor Passingham to bring to the February meeting to request the ICB to come in. Was that, am I paraphrasing that correctly? And after today's debate, it would be pertinent. My only caveat is I know it's the 7th of February and we are only just about to go into December. It is quite a short time scale. Yeah, I've got no issues with it, but what I would say was, can we give them a series of options to come in?
Yeah, I think as I discussed with Howard, if they can't make that date, or if you think it's going to be too crowded at that meeting,
yeah,
the 7th of March, is it possible then?
That will be too late though, because the consultation will be over.
Yeah, it depends how strict the consultation is.
Well, it's 6 weeks only.
So any contribution from this committee won't be accepted at all if we do it then?
Absolutely not.
No, that's fine then.
So it has to either be February or not at all.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. We're happy with that. We've got any other amendments or additions to the working plan?
Well, so, Chair, it was Councillor Littlewood's point about the South Yorkshire local plan, just having a sort of routine. I don't know if that has to be recorded on this or not. Apologies if not.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's a good reminder. If we can then, we'll go away and have a think about how this can be done in a most logical and user-friendly for officers way as well, because we don't want to make it too onerous, but we want to make sure we've got the right information as well. Councillor Alcock?
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering how much I need to wave from now on to ensure I get seen.
No, I just like you waving to me. That's what it is.
Waving. Woo! At the last meeting, I raised about that I'd like us to scrutinise a little bit more the home choice process application, wording in it, etc., especially related to single parents being able to have.
So again,
the housing allocation.
Oh, the house.
We didn't quite hear what you said. So, yeah, the housing allocation.
I apologise.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, so the housing allocation, etc., that we could probably scrutinise that part of the application, and I can't see it on here. I'm just wondering if I could raise that again to ensure it does get looked at, partly because, you know, to ensure that single parents and do get a fair choice with the wording, etc. I just want to make sure it's still up to date and pertinent to the times we live in.
Yep, we'll try and, it will be on there next time, and we'll try and find an appropriate time. And again, we can discuss this. But yeah,
thank you.
That's pointless. Any other additions, or are we happy with that one? Brilliant. Last item is urgent business. I do not have any. So I'll close the meeting at 13:12, and thank you for your assistance and participation.